You complaining about P for power
I
amp?
am. You already used that. Couldn't you like?
It's part 2.
Then
Should have been A for amp.
could have been P squared, P2,
P knuckle.
P
hen.
P knucklehead.
P coat.
Let's see what. Well, it's water under the bridge now, isn't it?
Where's that time machine? Hey everybody, what's happening? Round 2, power amp talk. Oh, I guess Steve quit.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah, look at this. Would you like to oh,
Dumbass.
here. Move your head close.
Okay, so we can see that Joe is on a roll tonight.
I'm always on a
He's
roll.
just gotten too much oxygen today. I, on the other hand, have not had enough. Not enough oxygen, not enough food, not enough caffeine, not enough sleep. And I couldn't be happier about that.
You are you ever seen a toddler who's like at the tail end of their day? It's about to be a wipe out. They're gonna wind up crying and everything, but the lead up to it, they're like super manic and happy and running around, and it's like energy overload. So that's what's happening with you.
That's
like,
what
you're in a good space.
that's
but
what
in about an
Nico-chan
hour,
is like. That's what Nico-chan is like. She's like when
Nico-chan?
yeah.
You talking about fat Nico-chan?
Yeah. Yeah, she's on fire for like about 4 straight hours, and then she hits the wall, boom, right into the speaker cabinet.
Oh man,
Torrin.
Hey Simon, what's up? Hey Wayne, hey
Simon.
guys. Yes, we meet again, kind of, sort of. Isn't it weird?
Which Wayne? Where's Wayne?
Wayne Eagles.
Where? Oh, there.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm blind.
Yeah.
You're so blind.
So here we are.
Hi.
We're gonna do power amp questions.
Yeah, we're gonna do stuff.
We're gonna get into it quickly
We're gonna get in your face, actually.
because last week I think it was 3 hours and 20 minutes, and tonight we have to get out between an hour and a half and 2 hours.
Okay. Why?
And you're ready.
Is that your bedtime?
I'm always out past my bed. This was kind of orders from headquarters from Erico.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we had this discussion. And
Yeah.
and that was the whole idea that led to the bell.
So when do you ring the bell? Do you ring it like when it's
You
time
get to ring it when you've answered it. That'll stop the clock.
So.
Yeah.
So desu ka.
So here's another part of what Erico and I discussed. I just don't think we'll be able to use it, but Gigantor iPad with let's say we're doing it for 5-minute countdown. Go, Steve, go. Go, Steve, go, go, go. And then you can watch
Should
it.
we put it over here and put it on the?
Well,
But then
I
you won't
can't
be able
run
to
it.
activate,
Yeah,
right.
like
Okay.
you do it like this,
All right. Okay.
and then you have your bell.
I guess we're all set.
Yeah, we're kind of set, huh?
Wow, this is amazing.
It's pretty bananas.
When last we met, I did my usual, and then there was one gentleman who was asking a slew of questions, especially at the end of the show, and like, that'll be next episode. That'll be next episode. That'll be next episode.
Here's our buddy
So-
Richard, our new buddy Richard.
So he's either here or will be, I imagine, and just be sure and put some others between those.
Yeah, yeah.
And right. So let's see. Was there anything exciting happen this week before we get into the nitty gritty? Well, there's all kinds of things happening. Let's see, what was something really exciting that happened this
Or
week?
you don't have to necessarily talk about anything that really happened. You could make something up completely.
Yeah, I could, but
You want to tell a story?
no.
You want to tell the truth?
I think it'll just suffice to say that I don't know what's going on out there, but it's for the craziness that's going on out in the crazy sphere. Things seem to be hopping around our little establishment.
That's wonderful.
And geez, I think in the last 10 days I've done 5 interviews.
What?
People are coming over. Our buddy Perfecto came over.
Yeah.
To ask to talk to me for like 15 or 20 minutes, and that took an hour and a half. So
he told me later on, he was like, it got kind of cosmic.
yeah, we got out there.
Yeah.
We got out there. So if there's anything else that popped up that I'm not thinking of right at the moment that was exciting, I'll interject that. Otherwise, you got questions. I've got immense reservoirs of pontification, and hopefully I'll answer your question, and maybe we'll fall across something that might trigger a larger conversation, and maybe it won't. Well, let's find out, shall we?
Yeah. You ready?
Yes.
First question. Hi guys, can you talk about the Black Beauty power amp? What gap were you looking to fill with it? I'm gonna go.
Okay. There was no gap that we were trying to fill. Our Japanese distributor would occasionally give us a request to make something really unique for their marketplace, and something that nobody else had. And so they would hit us with these requests from time to time. And so we would evaluate that. I would take that question and think, okay, is there a reason for it to exist? And then that, on top of that, the general overview of what we consider a reason to embark on a new product. We basically have this subset where this is a special request. It's not far removed from something that we're already making. It's just a little special variation for which they're going to give us like a block order of X number of pieces. This can be a one-time thing.
That'd be like the blue faceplate.
Exactly like that. Yeah, like we did with Chuck Levin's, Washington Music for their 65th anniversary. That's where the blue power stations came from. Same kind of thing. The main guy that run the head of our distribution company in Japan, kind of an audio freak, hi-fi freak. Yeah, and also he's a person with a passion for 6L6s. And so that he asked if we could do something. I think he basically originally asked us to do a 252 with 6L6s, and I said, no, why would we do that? Because if we do that, there will be complications. They'll find out about it in the US. Can I get mine done that way? And the answer would be, well, no, we don't really make it that way. And it would have to be a large enough quantity to make it so that it works right, which means putting different output transformers in to match the impedance of 6L6s at the voltages that they operate in that amp. So not just putting the tubes in and not just putting a nice cover on the front of it, it electronically has to do something specific and unique and do it well. So that's what we did. We came up with, okay, we can do it with 6L6s, but there's going to be a minimum order because we're going to have to make a batch of transformers that work right for 6L6s. And they're not going to be interchangeable. And then if you want something cosmetically special, let us know. And he wanted a polished chrome front panel. And I said, polished, okay, chrome, no, because it would be really, really expensive and really time consuming to produce. The whole process of getting a really good I only want to do chrome if it's just ace top notch. And you just can't do it in chrome without going through a whole special process, because the polishing step is the most critical part. And also with aluminum, after it's cleaned and etched and all the processes that you do for the chrome to stick, it cleans out the metal. And if the metal is too porous, and you may not see the porosity at the beginning, but when it goes through the etching process, all of a sudden the whole thing is full of pinholes. So it's a real nightmare. And I didn't want to go down that road. So I said, I'll agree to polish black or some other color, maybe red or whatever. You pick between those, and they picked black. And that's what we did. We made a limited run for Japan. And then I think we ran another batch for the US. And then we stopped that because the Japanese buyer, it was a one-time thing for them. And I didn't really have a lot of passion for it to keep it going. We had other interesting things that we were working on, so that took a backseat, so we stopped doing it. And that's where it came from, and that's why it stopped. And thank you for your question.
30 seconds left. Okay, let's take a little pit stop. Everybody's saying that the volume is a little bit low.
Low.
Something get readjusted.
It did not get readjusted, but we talked about the setting thing for the beginning of the show. And what have we got here? We've got,
Yeah, I turned that off while you were talking, and I raised the level up a little bit over here, but we should look at what's going on over there.
oh, you turned off the automatically adjust, but we were running the automatically adjust.
We were,
But now it's turned off.
and now it's off, but they're still saying it's too low.
Did you just turn it off?
While you were giving your answer, I turned it off and I turned up the volume there to try and correct it, but they're still saying it's too low.
Well, the level is up here.
Huh.
So
Let's try this, guys. I'm going to crank it over here in StreamYard. So this is the most juice I can give it within StreamYard. Tell me what that sounds like. Does it sound normal like it had been? Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Help.
just everybody
Still
go with
a
that
little
volume
low.
level now? Still a little
Still
low?
a little low.
Really low. No reason for it to be really low. Nope, there's no reason for it to be low. The levels are up here.
Now we're doing malcontents shit.
It's 40. It's 48. It's up there.
Huh.
The levels are not changed from last show.
Dan says it's low but workable.
I'm going to put the automatic back on and see what happens.
Well, it just pulls it down.
Yeah. That
Test, 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 test.
automatically adjust. That's not changing anything.
Yeah, some guys are saying you need to add another preamp stage to the laptop.
Yeah. Yes, sirree, Bob.
And then play it through a PS100.
Shut off the Yeah, that seems hotter now.
So audio is back.
So how's the level now? Is it good? Looks like it's hotter now. Yeah. I just restarted it.
All right.
Still low.
What?
Still lower and it distorted.
Lower and distorted. Well, there's no reason for that. I don't know why that would be.
Some people are saying it sounds good now. It's just low compared to our other shows, but let's try this. Let's go back to,
No, that I'm like adjust things.
yeah.
Cutting it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's louder with that off. Turn it all the way up. Let's turn it.
It's maxed.
Now it's maxed.
Test, test, test.
Yeah, that's louder. Now it says, see,
You
now
want
it says,
tequila?
so loud, too loud?
You want?
So did it get really loud now? Oh, somebody says that's better. All right. Okay, I'm going with that. We're doing it live.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's really awesome. Okay. You want another question?
Do I have a choice?
Of course. You could walk out the door and never come back.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. You gonna pick me a question, or you gonna make me make a fool of myself again?
I like where this is going. All right, I can handle that.
Like
All right.
Deputy Dog sings Charles Ray Charles.
Steve, do you feel the 2150 and the Classic have a reason to exist in 2025? Go.
Well, we already did the Classic as the 30th anniversary, and in order to do that, we go back to the polishing and plating aspect of the Classic power amp, which it was a really expensive proposition, and that amp ended up being the street price of that ended up being like $5,000. We sold all of them, but in concept, yes. But the actual part of, if we were going to do that one now, it would be more like $7,000.
Oh man,
I mean, this was just before COVID, I think,
I thought it was just after.
or just after, right around that time.
It's not that long
It
ago.
was our 30th anniversary, so that would have been 2019,
Was that? Yeah, 2019,
which was
right before COVID.
right before COVID. Oh, I do know what I'm talking about. And yeah, so maybe so. Do I want to make a cheaper version of it so that we could sell it again? No, that's not really my jam. It's not really our thing. We like to go forward, not back. And we're always in the process of doing that. So you bring up the 2150 in that same question. And the products themselves, specifically those exact products, the way we made them before, is there a reason to exist? Perhaps so. Can we do it better? Absolutely. Can we make a more effective presentation? Absolutely. Would we like to do something like that? Absolutely. Do I have anything more to say about it right now? Absolutely not. But I appreciate the question, and I'm glad that the question is lingering out there, because when there's something out there, and you're not the first person to ask this, so when there's something out there like that that keeps getting reflected back at us, then I give it weight. I say, okay, people are talking about that. Now, what should be our response? And if we're going to respond to that, and by respond, I mean, are we going to come up with something that whets that appetite? It's not going to be like, oh, whoopee, we did something that we could have done in a coma. It's going to be, oh, right? It's going to get stepped up. So that's the answer to your question is not specifically, but yes, possibly in a more evolved, progressive way. Let's see how that all plays out.
Question along the lines of what you were just talking about. You said that the Classic, if you were to do it in 2025, it would cost about $2,000 more.
Yeah, easily.
What are the top things, the top of mind, if you thought, okay, we're going to try and control costs and bring it down, what would you have to change?
The two most expensive things are the chassis, which includes the front panel, and the transformers. Especially now, getting the transformers made in the USA and getting the chassis made in the USA and making that front panel in the USA. And in the quantities, this is not something that we would make 1,000 pieces of. I could be wrong, and we sold a lot more of the Classic than I expected to. The very first release announcement that we did, they were gone. But I don't think the economy is like that right now. So I don't think the economic conditions would support a velocity like that. So we would basically have to go to our chassis supplier with all of the old drawings and get them requoted, and for current market pricing, and there are other dynamics at play. For example, one of our transformer suppliers, the ones that we would probably use to make the transformers for that product, are here in Southern California, and their prices are just skyrocketing. Their quality is not going down. They're rock solid on their quality, but the price of steel, the price of copper, the price of labor, and all of that, it's conspiring. So it's going to drive up the price to the point where part of that question, does it have a reason to exist? I mean, the pricing calculation is a big part of that. Does it have a reason to exist at $2,000?
Right.
Does it have a reason to exist at $3,000?
Great point.
Does it have a reason to exist at $7,000? And the more that number goes up, the more the reasons go down.
Yeah,
So we're not just talking about can we do it? We could do it in a coma.
Especially when you can get an LX2.
Yeah,
They exist.
and that's what you would say. Oh, gee, I could get 3 LX2s for that. 4,
And it's like you should.
And you should.
Yeah.
But then we would get all the, okay, so if I bought 4 LX2s and wire them all together, what would the ohms be? And like, no, we're not going to go down that route. We're going to find a sane path to embark upon. I'll leave it at that.
All right, cool. All right. It says, hi, Steve. Question about the master volume control on the Pitbull Ultra Lead. Why is there such a noticeable mid-range boost in the amp when the master is at full?
There would be a mid-range boost. With the master volume at full, I might probably assume that with respect to the master volume being at full, you would turn the channel volumes down. Because if you're just turning the master volume full and leaving the channel volumes full, then yeah, you would get a more of a mid-range bark, because now you would be pushing the power amp to its limit. And when you push the power amp stage, the power tube's hitting the output transformer, and the output transformer starts to saturate. The highs and low frequencies fall off, and the mid-range comes forward, just like in any guitar amp, a vintage Marshall, a an old high watt, vintage high watt, any amp that you just crank the crap out of, where the output transformer is saturating, it'll tend to have more of a mid-range bark. But if you're turning the master volume up and the channel volumes down, uh, the it won't get more mid-rangey. It'll get more, it would sound more broadband actually. So I guess it all depends on what guitar you're using. If you're using any pedals, and the how much gain you're using, which specific channel are you talking about today. For every question that I get asked about a technical aspect of operating an amp, I've got 5 back,
Yeah.
just so that I can get as much information out of you as I need to answer your question effectively.
Which is
right?
also why the new Fryette support forum exists. Is to
And
have that.
that's a great question for that, because then we're going to say, all right, what year is it? What's the serial number? So we know exactly what revision, what are your settings, what's your guitar, your speaker count. We're going to want to know all that, because if you want a really educated, effective, useful response to that question, we need a lot more data out of you.
Yeah, and a back and forth.
Yeah.
Yay, look at you doing so good. All right, this is a question that is a leftover from last week. It's not necessarily power amp related, but this is from our buddy Richard. Well, I'm not sure if he's here this evening, but he says, what's going on as of today with the supply chain? Because we've talked about that kind of thing a lot on the show. Are you current with orders or delayed? And how does this affect the economics?
Wow. Every day you ask that question, you're going to get a different answer. And the reason I say that is because every Monday we get presented with a new list of challenges that we have to overcome, not only to get to the end of the week, but to get through an entire quarter's worth of production. A quarter, 3 months. Because some little occurrence is going to affect production for the next production cycle, which is a quarter, 3 months. For example, the tariffs. Since all that, in the last couple of months, the last month or two of all this tariff craziness, our expenses just in shipping stuff here has gone up $100,000 for this quarter. $100,000 for a quarter. So if this keeps up, we're talking about, approaching $500,000 for a year more expenses to produce these things.
Wow.
So, and you'll notice that our prices aren't increasing. Well, why is that? Because we're doing things to try to mitigate those expenses. Bringing in a little bit more inventory whenever we can before something changes, in terms of tariffs or costs. Because I mean, sometimes they go up and then they magically disappear. Shipping to Canada slowed down, not because of tariffs on us, but because Canadian government putting tariffs on goods coming from the US going to Canada. So the Canadian consumers were paying 25% more. So they were ordering less from us because they were going to be paying their own country's treasury 25% more for the stuff. Just like you and I as consumers, all these tariffs come out of our pocket eventually. So we pay the brunt of that. There are ways to mitigate around that. Like I said, if we know something is coming, we try to expedite shipments and bring in a little more inventory before things change, on the bet that the way things have been going with tariffs, they may disappear just as quickly as they arrived. And so it's almost like banking a deficit.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, well, we may pay a little extra money for something now because we need to keep things flowing. We're constantly selling out of stuff, and so we have good turnover. And that means our customers are giving us good demand.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that we need to keep it going. So if there's a quarter where it's less profitable, and then if the tariff thing changes, there'll be a corresponding quarter that's more profitable. So it may end up all balancing out. So we try to not do anything rash and panic and make crazy changes in the midst of all this stuff, because everybody's freaking out.
Right.
And I'm not one of those people that freaks out. I'm one of those people that just goes, all right, everybody, we have a meeting at the shop, everybody's, we sit everybody down, let's all count to 10 and take a deep breath and talk about what's really happening, what's really going to happen, and what our response to that is going to be next. If at all possible, maintain our prices until we're basically forced. Our hand is forced. We just absolutely have to do this or this to respond to that. And so that's a really huge thing, and it's keeping us all on our toes every day. The thing that affects turnover mostly is demand, how quickly we can get stuff from our suppliers. If a particular supplier, like a supplier of aluminum front panels, gets hit with a tariff on aluminum, they're going to start scrambling and looking for other places around the world to buy aluminum at a better price.
Right.
They may run out. Years and years ago, our transformer supplier ran out of steel to make transformers. They were used to buying steel on contracts. So it was just like the way airlines buy plane fuel. They buy it on futures contracts. They hedge fuel. They buy it at the best price they can get it for, and then they wait for the price to be favorable again, and then they execute another contract, so that when the price spikes up, they've got the price locked through that period. And that's how stuff gets managed. That's what's going on now too. Depends on what the suppliers have available, how many jobs they have with their other customers that use the same materials that we use. So we're always in constant touch with our suppliers, and what's happening with steel, what's happening with aluminum, what are your stock supplies like, and how much is, and if I give you another order for this, are you going to requote it? Are you going to honor the last price, or is there going to be a small incremental bump or whatever? It's just a constant juggling act. We're watching everything that's going on all the time.
Yeah, and are your trade partners, the companies that you partner with, are they people who kind of try and stay the course as long as they can, or are they people who freak out? Right? So you try and
both,
sneak out. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Like, for example, our dealer in UK, Peach Guitars, they're quiet for a while, and all of a sudden they're going, this is a perfect time. If you can supply us with stuff, this is the perfect time for you to be shipping. We've got good demand, we've got good cash flow, and we need to fulfill on that. So whatever we said that we wanted you to ship by the end of September, can you do it now? We can't do your entire order now. We could do half of it. Now, normally they would say, if it's a difference between shipping it in the middle of September and the middle of November, they might say wait and ship everything in November. But they need stuff now. So we told them what we had now and what we could ship in 3 or 4 additional weeks, and they went, ship us what you got now, ship the rest,
cool.
3-4 weeks later.
Yeah.
So we're all in close communication with each other, trying to, just pull a trigger on something and then move on to the next. It's keeping everybody on their toes, let me tell you.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Next question. All right. This is from this evening. Rhythm of Descent says, I'd like to understand Steve's perspective of using his power amps with modelers that already have power amp simulation baked in. Also the different voices of the 292. Thanks.
All right. That's not going to be a 5-minute question, but I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes, and
This isn't. You have to do it.
We'll just keep hitting on this because it's really important. Tube amplifiers, tube power amps make modelers sound better. Modelers in and of themselves have facsimiles of amplifiers in them, and they also have facsimiles of cabinets and power amps. The power amp models, these are just other snapshots. You've got snapshots of pedals, you've got snapshots of amplifiers, you have snapshots of power amplifiers, and you have snapshots of preamps or power amps. You also can have snapshots of preamps as well.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. And cheers to you. And cheers to y'all. This smells insanely wonderful.
Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. A little detour.
Whoa!
I spent the entire day yesterday at my home workstation working on product design. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I literally worked on it until about dinner time. I had a little snack for breakfast and a coffee, and that was it for the whole day. So we decided, okay, I can't sit here and stare at the monitors anymore. We got to get out of the house. So we go out, we go downtown, we get a bite to eat, and on the way back, we went down to Little Tokyo, to this place called a noodle place. It's a ramen, not ramen, udon, an udon place, an udon soba establishment called Manzo. So it's on First Avenue, in between Alameda and San Pedro Street, I think. It's a great,
exactly where that is.
Great little place. The very center of Little Tokyo proper.
Did you know that Little Tokyo has the highest crime rate of any neighborhood in Los Angeles proper?
No, I did not know that.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Anyway.
It's a great little place. So we went there, and on the way back, we stopped at my favorite bar in Studio City, the Black Market Bistro. They always have the best bartenders. It's always a laid-back place, and it's a cool little hang. And so we stopped in there on the way home, and the bartender there, my buddy Miles, who is an ace mixologist, ace, and they all are there. But he's always interesting because he'll go for a challenge. And he says, what do you have? And I said, I haven't a clue. I said, what's your specialty? And he goes, well, I'm kind of a margarita man myself. And I went, he goes, you don't like margaritas? I said, no, I love margaritas, but I was looking for some enlightenment from you, not more of the same. And he goes, I got something for you then.
There's lots of people who claim to be margarita men.
Yeah.
It's not
And
awesome.
Yeah.
But you're great at margaritas. So it's
So if Miles says he's a margarita man, I know that he's going to make a good margarita. And I've had margaritas there many times. So I know their margaritas rock, and that's not what I'm interested in. I don't want to make a decision. I want something else. I don't care what it is. If he said that he had a special drink that'll knock my socks off, I would have said, okay. So he says, I think I got something for you. And I said, all right, I'll take it. Don't you want to know what it is? Nope. Just make it. like I said to Bruce Nelson about the guitar, the Greenie. Don't you want to tell me more about what you want? No,
Oh man, you're the expert.
you're the expert. You make
Show
the
me
damn
what's
thing.
up. Yeah.
So I went to the restroom and I came back and there was something like this sitting on my table.
Look at that beautiful color.
Beautiful. And I took a sip and I went, it's exactly what I needed. And I didn't even know I needed that. I said, what is this? And he says, it's a Sierra Norte. So go look it up. And he said, normally I make it with not tequila, mezcal. He says, normally I make it with mezcal. But I decided to try to make it with tequila this time because you said you didn't want something with tequila in it. And I said, it doesn't really exactly taste like it's got tequila. It's something other. And he goes, yeah, well, if I'd have done it with mezcal, it would have had a smokier flavor. And I said, you done the right thing. Every time I say you did the right thing, I think of that Albert Collins song. You done the right thing, and I want to thank you too. Now let's have a little drink, just me and you. I know it's stupid, but it's funny when he does it.
Well, it's not stupid in Albert Collins' hands.
That's right.
Only yours.
That's right.
That's why you're
So,
Steve and he's Albert.
A Sierra Norte is Aperol lime,
Okay.
Pineapple juice, and I am absolutely not a fan of pineapple juice.
I am.
And and he used tequila, but this one has mezcal.
Very much.
And I don't know if there's another flavor in there. Maybe there's a twist of something in that. But oh man, is this good? And he made a great one. And of course, this is the Nico-chan. Anything you can do, I can do better. And and she delivers every time. And of course, she delivers it. So Sierra Norte, check it out.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
And the other nice thing about it is, we're really trying not to buy any new liquors. We're just finally getting rid of all the stuff that we accumulated from COVID time on. The sideboard was just loaded with bottles, and they all got like about 1/8 of an inch or something left on
And
the
another
bottom.
thing is I think for a while you guys would get bottles just for shits and grins to make something interesting on the show.
Yeah.
But it's not stuff you're going to have frequently.
That's right.
So it's just sitting on
It's
there
just-
like,
yeah.
we got to come up with some
Yeah, we have to invite more people over here and
No.
make drinks to use up
Yeah,
stuff that we don't
yeah.
want to drink.
This is delicious.
So yeah, so this was all. The only thing that we had to get was the Aperol and the pineapple juice. So anyway,
Back to
the power amp mod.
You're giving the modelers a power amp rinse,
Yes.
as Pete Anderson would
and
say.
when you're going to do that, you want to have the power amp model in the modeler turned off, because it's basically just going to be doing a fake exaggerated version of what the real power amp is really doing, which is interacting with the speaker. A model will not do that. A model is the model of a power amp interacting with a speaker, but it's not interaction in real time. And what I mean by that is it was a reaction that was created in the modeling process,
Mhm.
which is not playing it in real time. You don't play through an amp and record it and then model that. You model a pulse.
Right.
So it's just one instantaneous little pulse. And that's what the interaction between the supposed amplifier and the supposed speaker are doing. Now, you say you've got a power amp profile, a power amp model, a power amp simulation in there. Okay, and it's the EL34 model, or it's a 6L6 model, or it's a 6550 model. Okay, what phase inverter is in this power amp that was modeled? What output transformer? What you know, how many numbers of gain stages? What was the feedback network doing? Was it a high amount of negative feedback? Was it a low amount of negative feedback? Was it adjustable negative feedback? And how was it set? There are an invariable number of things that you have to consider. What constitutes this power amp profile? But one thing that you can be sure of is that no matter what you're playing or how you're playing or what other sounds you're putting through that power amp profile, it's not changing its character.
Right.
It's doing just that one model that it was created
Which is
to
also
do.
our critique of IRs as well.
That's
I mean, as cool as they are,
they are one.
it's a little
they-
snapshot.
They are one snapshot, one 20 millisecond episode in your life of picking a string.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a model is created in less time than it takes to pick one string once.
Yeah, it's wild.
Isn't that wild? So
It's not like what's happening to that speaker over the duration of
Yeah.
3 sets tonight.
right. So you get rid of the power amp profile and run the preamp section of whatever amp you have. And most modelers these days, you can extract the power amp from the amp.
Just turn it off.
You just turn off the power amp part of
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
and just go for the voicing of the preamp. And then that comes out and goes into a real power amp. Now it's going to be a different power amp than the power amp that was represented by the model that, you know, so
Right.
the output stage of a 292 or a LX2 or something is going to be a different kind of a behavior and profile than a real Tweed Deluxe, and by extension
Your 2204.
a model of a Tweed power amp section of a Tweed Deluxe. So this is all virtual stuff going into a real power amp. So it's less relevant what kind of tubes are in the power amp or how much power it has, really. What's relevant is that the power amp is activating a speaker, is connected to a speaker, is driving a speaker, or at least a reactive load that behaves like a speaker. And in that regard, now the power amp has the capability to add subtlety and character to your modeler. It doesn't turn the modeler into a real amp. It just puts all the icing
Mhm.
and the icing on the chocolate cake.
It's a rinse.
It's a rinse. You
It's
get the
truly a
chocolate cake, and then you wash it down with you know, a sip of cognac or something like that. This is what
It's
the real power amp is doing.
It's before digital recording gear got good enough to kind of disguise this, where you take a session that had been done completely in digital and you dump it to tape.
Yeah.
On the mix to give it that rinse, you know? Like, oh, that's better. Round stuff off just right. And, you know, it's not the exact same as doing it in the analog realm the entire way, but it restores some of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good?
Yep.
All right. We are going to, for the next two questions, talk about Sound City stuff.
Okay.
This was from an unanswered question from last week. From Kevin Leary Guitar. Is the Sound City 50 watt friendly to fuzz pedals in the vein of David Gilmour?
Sure. I mean, depends on what Gilmour era you're talking about. Is the era where he's actually like playing through high watts? Because if so, sure, absolutely.
I imagine.
It's so
It was,
it's there are several eras of high watts. So there are great ones and good ones and okay ones and bad ones. So within the realm of the good ones, which range from their time of their inception at around
70, 71.
68 to 68 or so, up to about
74,
75,
75.
you know, in that range, that's the quintessential high watt sound. And the Sound City amps that we make are a subset of that sound. You can get them to sound pretty much identical, or you can voice them a little differently, and they have a little bit more harmonic range than the high watt itself. So the vintage DR 103 and 504s are the amps from which the reputation came. If you want them to sound good, you got to crank them. And the later variations are the ones that, no matter how much you crank it, they still have this kind of raggedy, edgy.
We did that whole thing with Barisi's.
Abrupt sound, yeah.
Late 70s,
Yeah.
I think it was a 78.
Yeah, and he was not happy with that. But he was partly not happy with it because he just thought, like a lot of people think, well, it's high watt, it's got the high watt thing. But mine doesn't seem to be having the high watt thing, so there must be something wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it, just a different a different era of high watts that aren't the ones that you wish that it was. And
The Sound Cities that you did are really,
they are way
after.
yeah.
When I think of Gilmore and Fuzz, I'm thinking of Live at Pompeii and all that amazing shit. And that was what, I think 71. So right in that era, which is right where the Sound
spot,
Cities
yeah.
that you did. That's so I think not only are they like cool, like they're amazing with Fuzz. Those amps, we talk about this a lot. I wish they were more in the dialogue.
Yeah, well,
They're fucking
they very
amazing.
well could be once we
All right.
get through scaring everybody away with the stuff that we think is cool now.
You can only do so much.
That's right.
So sticking within the Sound City realm for one more question. It's from this evening. Purposeful Porpoise. He addresses you as Lord Fryette.
Oh, please. No.
I'm calling you that all week long.
Uh,
The SE30 is one of the greatest creations since the slicing of the bread. What about a 212 version or a 410?
I think that we did the 112 because we didn't really think that anybody really wanted a 212. So we focused on the single speaker combo.
Deluxe instead of the Pro Reverb approach.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about the Deluxe. Everybody talks about the Super Reverb, and of course the Twin.
Yeah.
And as long as I can remember, the Pro, people had them, but nobody ever really talked about them. There never was the excitement for the Fender combo associated with the Pro like there was with the Deluxe, the Vibrolux.
It's in that weird spot of like it's a little too loud, but it's not as loud as the big amps.
Yeah.
I don't know what I do with it.
Well, the Pro is 40 watts plus, and the SC30 is just on the verge of 30. Maybe it's 32. So it's a little less power. To make it a 212, of course, it would have to be bigger, and then with two speakers, now the speaker activity is less because there's more of them. So I just felt like the single 12 was the right balance. 410s, nobody wants 410s that isn't a super reverb. It's the weirdest thing. We made some of the best sounding 410 amps I ever played, and I've got a 63 or 4 blackface concert that's one of the best sounding Fender amps of all time, in my humble estimation. But it's big and bulky, but there are 410 Fender players, right? But there aren't a lot of 410 amp players. It's a totally different thing. When Fender did a 410, there was a club, there was a coterie of people that use that amp. And if a new amp that also had 410s appeared on the market, those kind of people didn't go, oh, another 410 amp, I got to check that. They didn't do that. They took more of the attitude that, yeah, you know what, if it doesn't floor me like my super reverb or my concert amp does, I'm not interested. The Fender 410 amps just have their own little niche. Just like the Pro Reverb kind of doesn't have much of a following.
Yeah.
The Super Reverb has got an ultra cult following.
I'm team Super Reverb.
And you are. I'm team. I don't really care that much for Super Reverbs. They're too flubby on the bottom for me. But that 410 concert, oh my God, that's just the most amazing thing.
The 410 concert sounds the most like a high watt.
Yeah, it's
Any old Fender is what it is.
Just coincidentally, after
Oddly enough.
when I played my first high watt, I went, I love this. And then years later, I plugged into the concert and I went, I see why I love this, because I love this amp first, and it sounds an awful lot like that.
Yeah.
So they're kind of some kind of weird DNA. So I won't put the effort into a 410 because we would make one. If I knew that we were going to make 100 or 1,000, then maybe. But I don't have the sense that there is a sufficient demand to put the effort into it. And the same goes for the 212. We could do it. We've toyed with the idea of doing a head and a 212 combo, 212 cab that goes with it. But we did make a Sound City 212 cab, and it's more akin to the 412 cab.
Mm-hmm.
If we were going to make a 212 cab that would be more of the ilk of the combo, it would be smaller, it would be open back, and then
that's interesting.
I just don't get the sense again that we would sell a ton of them, and by a ton I mean a reasonable amount that justifies going into production with it. In other words, a reason to exist, and it doesn't really meet that criteria.
And is it really going to bump something else to the side that we're really excited about doing that
Absolutely.
really clearly has a reason to exist?
Is that getting annoying yet?
No, I love it. And I'm the only one sitting next to you. So. You made an interesting point there that I'd never thought about before. 212s, they really can go one. Like there's this is just a mini 412. You know, we're doing our best to give it that low end and everything in that package.
Right.
But then there's a whole other way of, no, this is supposed to be portable, open, but more like Fender kind of thing.
Right.
You know, maybe the actual material isn't as thick. Like it's a whole different thing. Like more of the combo.
That kind of cabinet is more like the head and combination for people that want the two pieces to be lighter than the one whole piece.
Yeah.
So it's open back. It's more like a combo. And we used to make we still make the Fat Bottom 212, which is again the brethren of the Fat Bottom 412. We used to make a smaller 212 that was sealed back for the ST, and then we made an open back 212 for the Pitbull 45. Again, they weren't big sellers. They're just suited certain people, and they sold okay, but it didn't really make sense to have a whole range of those. I know some companies do that. They just put out tonnage of things.
Just every permutation, like we're doing it.
Yeah, it's like the Arts Deli menu. You know, there's 800 things on there, and there's probably 20 things on that menu that they just like the kitchen is always busy with.
Yeah.
And then you order something off the menu, and the waitress goes, "Oh, that's been discontinued for 2 years. We don't make that anymore." Then why is it still on the menu? Yeah, we haven't printed a new menu yet. Yeah.
Man, I love the Deliverance 212. That's a badass cab.
It is a good sounding cab.
Yeah. All right, next question. From Aaron Loves Gear. Hey, don't we all? Would you ever make a completely solid state amp? I love this question. Or would you rather commit suicide? I have a Joyo Zombie and the Soldano SLO Mini, and I think they're super great for what they are. Mini Pitbull, perhaps?
They are great for what they are. No, I don't think I would commit suicide before doing something like that. Is it in our wheelhouse right at the moment that we are passionate about it or committed enough to do it, or do we think that um, it will occupy enough of our potential to offer them for sale, and that there would be enough of a demand for it again to take uh, inertia away from the other product development that we're really, really stoked and jazzed
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
No, but we talk about it within the company all the time. After this run of development that we're doing right now, first thing I'm going to do is I'll play Russian roulette with a completely empty gun just for fun. I'll just blow off some steam and just check out for a little while, because it's just been really concentrated, brain dump stuff for months and months, and for the
That's
past
true. It really has.
for the past year actually. And we have sort of committed ourselves to take an overview, take stock in where we're at in our product development, and what the potential demand is out there for going this other direction and making things more accessible to people that would like to have something that we make that sounds really good, but in a smaller package and in a more wallet-friendly budget. Yeah, we think about that and talk about those things all the time. So they're not outside the realm of possibility. And Pitbull is spelled with two T's. Thank you very much. Our Pitbull is spelled with two T's. Your dog is one T.
Ding. There we go. You know, it's worth shouting out again. The number one directive, I think, for the company is that products have to have a reason for existing. And when we talk about that, it's like, yeah, it has to have a reason to exist in the marketplace, because
Right.
you don't want to release bullshit.
Right.
But there's an interesting inverse to that, which is it's also protective to the company
Mm-hmm.
in terms of prioritizing, like, what do we really need to do? Because I think when you're on the outside and you're just looking at a company, there's a tendency to go, well, you've made all this stuff. And, I'm not denigrating anyone, but you've made all this stuff before. Why can't you just be making it now? Why isn't this still in production? Why aren't you doing the new version of that? And Frayet, the company, gets so much done, but like the actual number of people who work there, like, it's a really tight-knit crew. And I guess that's the bottleneck there, is like that reason to exist. What you're getting ready to produce really has to have a reason to exist, and that's the way you maintain priorities within the actual company, correct?
Yeah, and not
Or-
only that, but of the things that people know about that are in development or are getting close to release, there's another 10 things behind it that we haven't even talked about, that aren't that difficult to do, but just take time and human bandwidth, and we don't have enough of that. And
Yeah.
like right now, with the marketplace the way it is, and with all the uncertainty out there, we're not likely to drag in more staff for that reason, partly, and for the reason that now we're 2 years into our new factory and we're already just about maxed out there,
That's a fact.
which totally shocked me. We thought that would be 3 to 5 years before that happened, and it took 2, to where we're seriously considering taking out additional space in our business park, because we're maxed. So we're maxed in space, we're maxed in manpower, we're maxed in bandwidth. We could do a whole lot more. That would also take more, investment, financial resources to
It's a whole other
develop
level of
all these
management.
other things, to pay more people to, share the workload and all that. That's just not a risk that we're willing to take right now under the circumstances. So we're perfectly happy, perfectly busy, and we're shipping everything that we can possibly ship, and the bottom line is good. And we're just like, okay, we're just staying this course until we have a really solid positive sign that we can, we can like let off on the brakes a little bit and just cruise harder.
Yeah.
I'm dying for that to happen. Everybody is. We're all like going, yeah, we want to do more. And there's people calling up and saying, hey, I got this skill set. I can help you guys. Like, I'd work remote, or I could work on a contract basis. I could do this for you. I could do that for you. And sure, we're taking advantage of more and more of those kinds of things, but still there's a limit, because it all has to filter through here. And I have to be able to, one thing that is part of our mission is that it has to embody a pretty high level of quality management and quality built in and execution on a really high scale. So it's just, if we have more people doing background design work to take just the grunt work of chassis layouts and all that kind of stuff off my back, then that means more stuff for final approval is going to come through me. And
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn in that, like, you're moving towards that. You've been doing a lot more of that.
Yeah, and I'm really watching the I'm not interested in the AI thing anymore. I'm interested in the cloning market, because I need two more of me in the worst fucking way. Two more of me, but only, if they're going to clone people, I think it would be great if the clone was just more like an automaton, and I could just take a USB stick out of my neck and stick it into their neck, and then they could just go do basically the same thing I'm doing in parallel.
So you don't wind up arguing with this being.
Oh,
they're just doing you.
Can you imagine two of me in a room?
Yeah, I can actually.
Yeah. It would be a fuck you fest like there's no tomorrow.
All right, want another question?
How can you say I'm right? I'm you.
Take another sip.
Oh, I just did.
Can I change the PS2 from 6L6s to EL34s?
You need to change the output transformer. You need to change a few things. And we have had this question in the past. We've actually done a few of them. And what I always say is, we'll do it on one condition. When you get it and it doesn't sound any different, you don't get to come back and complain about that. Oh, well, it's got to sound different. It's going to sound different. Well, we did it for 3 or 4 people. And they said, I promise, I know I'm asking for something that you probably don't really want to do. So if you do it, I'm willing to pay a little extra money. And I know I've heard you talk about your philosophy on tubes, and that it's not going to really make that much of a difference, but I just want it because I just want it. And I promised not to come back to you and say it didn't exceed my expectations like I thought it would. You've already set me up to have my expectations dashed. I don't care. Take my money. Okay. Under those circumstances, yeah, and we did a few of them. And in every single case, the response back was, I totally see what you mean, but I'm glad I have it. If I took these two to a gig, nobody would be able to know which one I was playing through. But I'm glad I have it. I'm glad you did it, and I appreciate that. But also comes the acknowledgement that everything you said about how it was not going to be different came to pass. So yeah, we can do it. There might be subtle little different behaviors, but it's not going to be tonally so much as it will just be not really because the power tubes are different, in terms of tone. An EL34 has a slightly different transconductance than a 6L6, meaning their gain is slightly different and their operating impedance is slightly different. So that means the output transformer has to be slightly different. And then the feedback network around all that makes the tubes operate optimally with the output transformer has to be adjusted. And it just turns out that when you make all those adjustments to get it to work right, it doesn't sound very much different than the way it is now. It'll be a little bit different, but it won't be like a sonic thing. It won't be a big aha moment. It won't be my Marshall sounds way more like a Marshall than it Marshalled before. It won't be like that. It'll just be your tactile playing experience playing through it will be subtly shifted. And you'll know that that's coming because we already discussed it. The way to really find out is for me to make one, and we did this before we agreed to make any for any end users. We made one of each, sat them on top of each other, hooked them all up with a switching system so that you could instantaneously switch them with no negative side effects of switching systems, into the same cabinet, same guitar, the whole bit. A true A/B test. The listeners had to have their backs to the rig, and we played different guitars and different players and blah, blah, blah. And probably Nika-chan was the only one that could really hear the difference distinctly enough to make this comment. There is a subtle difference. I can hear it. And she's not really a guitar player, but she can play an E chord. And if you can play an E chord, you can compare amps. And she would play an E chord on this setup and then that setup with her back to it. And her conclusion was they're essentially the same. If I had to play the EO31 instead of the 6L6, I would have the same reaction as if I had to play the 6L6 rather than the EO34. They're close enough that it wouldn't matter to me, and they're just slightly different enough that it would be the same kind of difference as I make coffee the same way every morning, but every morning it tastes a little darker on Tuesday and a little lighter on Wednesday, or the milk is a little fresher, or we used 2% rather than whole milk today. Those kind of things.
God, some people swear that that's the meaning of life in that detail.
Well, to me, it's the meaning of life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to foist it on everybody else, because then I'd have to explain it all the time. And it isn't a thing you explain. It's a thing that you experience. And once you experience, then you come to the same conclusion. Yeah, that's cool. Does it make a difference to me? No, just knowing that it does it, it's cool. And now I know that, and I feel like I know more.
Next question. All right. Oh, this is from OG Buddy Mark. What do you think of products like Axiom's Power Amp emulator and Origin's Effects Amp recreations, i.e. not modelers, but solid state line level analog emulations of tube amps? Have you heard them?
I'm not familiar with those, but I am familiar with solid state amplifiers, and you're saying line level analog emulations of tube amps. So you're not really talking about power amps, I think. You're talking about amp emulations done in solid state. And there's been quite a few things like that. Surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, Peavey really went down that path a couple of decades ago. And they stopped doing it. There are diminishing returns that go along with that. The amount of time and effort that you go to make something in the solid state realm versus the return on the investment is not good, because people are who they are. And if somebody plays an amp and they like the sound of it and they don't ask what it is and they're happy with it and they're fine. But if somebody thinks they're playing through a tube amp and then you tell them it's solid state, they're going to lose interest. I mean, that's just kind of like a habitual response that I've always seen. That, oh, really? Oh, well, that's cool. But, you know, it's not cool. They'll say that's cool. I dug that. That was pretty interesting experience. But that didn't make them yank their wallet out. They just went, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go home and think about that. No, you're not. No,
I'm gonna go home and think. Yeah, I don't really need that.
Right. So, yeah, the impetus is to get something that people consider authentic in a efficient, lightweight, cost-effective package, and that's really all that's is always about.
Yeah.
There are esoteric hi-fi companies that make class A MOSFET solid state $20, $30, $40,000 a channel monoblocks that weigh 200 pounds each, and you mount them on the floor in your living room on these special wooden stands with the $150 a foot special cables that have layers and layers of copper to, you know, that where it's grain oriented, the crystals are aligned, and the skin effect is accounted for, and you know that you rub them in your hands with them lined up on the floor, lined up to true magnetic north before you use them the first time, or you void the warranty, and all of that kind of craziness. There is that, and in some environments, they are amazing to behold, but in the guitar amp realm, they're not, because guitar players, the bulk of the guitar player community are not the kind of people that are going to go spend $40,000 for an amp, for even a tube amp.
So you can go play your $75 cover gig.
Right. And especially not for a solid state amp. So it's a thing, and they do have some benefits, and I've played with some little MOSFET, high voltage MOSFET line stages and things like that, and they're pretty cool. Sure. Do they make me want to produce them in mass? No, just that's for somebody else to do. There's people that are passionate about that. I'm not one of them.
Learning how to play the bell, not just bonk it.
Should I do the Breaking Bad guy? Oh yeah.
That's right. All right, here's a question from last week. How is it? Oh yeah.
You know, Wayne Eagles brings up Pierce, and there were a couple of amps in the late 70s and early 80s that were solid state amps that people took seriously, and you know, Pierce was one of the ones that was getting some attention.
Holdsworth played them. I think Torn played them.
Yeah, and
Billy Sheehan, I think, played the bass stuff.
Who's the guy that played with Sammy Hagar, Sammy Hagar's band before.
Yeah. Oh, Ronnie Montrose.
Ronnie Montrose, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was big on Pierce amps. In fact, I think he helped.
Okay, the bell is now irritating.
Yeah.
All right, now we're in 20 into the show.
Okay.
Finally got our first complaint. Okay, were you answering a question, or am I asking you a question now?
You asked something that I forget what.
All right. Well, I'm asking you this: can you buy direct from you, we're not covered by your dealer.
Yes. Where are you?
This is from last week.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, I think, in fact, I think that that person contacted us.
oh, okay.
Yeah, if you're in a region around the world, someplace where you don't have representation, you can contact us directly through sales@fryette.com. And while I'm plugging stuff, please like and subscribe and tell your friends and your Auntie Griselda about us. All of that. But yeah, so you can email sales@fryette.com and tell us where you are, and if it's an unusual region, let us know what the voltage in your region, although we can find that out ourselves, but just helps to know, because some geographical regions, some countries have two different voltages and two different line frequencies, like Japan is one, and there are others. I think South America, there's a couple of different regions where they have two different electrical systems that are operable depending on what region you live in. So that's all we need to do. That's all we need to know. We'll do one of two things. We'll either refer you to somebody that's closer to you than we are, that could ship it less expensively, or we can refer you to, or we can ship directly to you. Steve Coe mentioned Singapore. I believe we have somebody close enough to Singapore that can ship to you directly. But if you haven't already, sales@fryette.com. Let us know, and we'll find out, and we'll either work it out where you can sell it directly to you, or refer you to somebody nearby that has it in stock. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. I think this is a real question. It's kind of asked in a funny manner. Transformer saturating. What does this mean? Is this like when I get full of Jaeger?
Pretty much. A transformer, in reality, has a finite limit of power that it can transfer from one side to the other side. A transformer has a primary side, which is the input coil winding, and the secondary side, which is the output coil winding, which connects to the speaker. The primary winding connects to the tubes. Its job is to convert the impedance of the tubes to the impedance of the speaker, and that's it. Anything that happens in the transformer with regard to frequency response and all that is strictly to do with how the thing is mechanically assembled and the quality of the materials that are used. And it's not a thing where, like, there's good material and there's cheap material. Of course there's that, but there's also the kinds of material to get a certain outcome versus a different kind of material to accomplish a different outcome. So transformers are of many types and build qualities and build and execution reasons to be executed a certain kind of a way. Do you want more frequency response? Do you want better mid-range coupling? Do you want better power handling capacity? Do you want a lower cost unit to give you the most performance that you can for the dollar? There's all these levels. Just like everything else, you pick and choose. You make a shopping list, a priority list of what the design of this product, which has an output transformer in it, do you want to maximize? Do you want to do you want to refine this particular aspect or that particular aspect? So there are transformers that are difficult to saturate because they require a lot of power coming out of the tubes going through it for it to hit its limit. And then there are other transformers that are easier to saturate because they either use less expensive steel, and again, it's not about the expense. The steel just happens to be less expensive, but certain kinds of steel are less efficient energy transfer types of steel. So the ones that are a little less efficient cost a little less and give you a little less performance, but in some cases that decreased in performance isn't really a decrease in performance. It's a difference in the saturation level, and sometimes that saturation level is a desired thing. It's desirable to have it saturate more quickly. So you would intentionally build the transformer to operate that way. So that is an example of you're doing it one way because of the cost, or you may use the same materials, but you're doing it because you want that behavior. If you're trying to recreate a Silvertone 1484, you know, you're not going to use the most expensive grain-oriented steel in the output transformer for that. If you're going to get a better sound, a more authentic sound out of the amplifier by using non-grain oriented silicon steel. There's just a different in formulation of the steel. So the why I keep talking about the steel is the medium upon which the magnetic field is built. Mm-hmm. The coils in the transformer energize the magnetic field in the steel. And then the magnetic field is the medium through which the power coming into the primary side gets transferred to the speaker load on the secondary side, because the input is not electrically connected to the outlet. They're related because they're wound like this, but there's no electrical connection between the primary and the secondary. The energy transfers from one coil to the other coil through the medium of the magnetic field. So the steel determines how big that magnetic field can be. And the less efficient the steel, the lower amount of Gauss, actually, the amount of magnetic field that the transformer can develop will be less. When you hit that maximum threshold of the magnetic field, the field won't grow any higher. And when that happens, the transformer starts acting like a compressor, an actual audio compressor. It sounds like a compressor pedal. Yeah. It'll squish. You'll hear it squish. The bass response will drop off, and the treble response will drop off. And that will increase the apparent mid-range frequency range of the amplifier, which gives us that nice bark. So when it's soft and smooth and saturating, it's wonderful. If it's not soft and smooth, if it's bassy and trebly, then the saturation is going to sound particularly awful. And so you also have to carefully design a transformer. If you're expecting saturation, it has to be designed in such a way that the saturation will be pleasant. This goes back to power amp design and harmonics that tube amplifiers generate versus solid state amplifiers. The harmonics that tube amplifiers generate tend to be the even order harmonics, which are more pleasing to the ear. They're softer, they're rounder, and they're more musical sounding. But it's possible to make an output transformer that saturates badly. And when that happens, it'll sound fine. You'll be playing, it sounds really good, and it's nice and detailed and blah, blah, blah. And you'll get up at a point where it'll just start sounding like sandpaper. And that's bad saturation in the output transformer.
Next question. I have a Furman 1 rack space power conditioner from the mid 80s. Oh yeah, got the lights. Should I replace it? Not sure if they age well. Give me please advise.
Yes. The rack we have at the shop has probably the very
same vintage
that you have in yours,
yeah.
like a late 80s, early 90s. No, you don't need to replace it. If it's just been doing its job and hasn't been overloaded, they usually don't do as much as they like to tell you that they do. They're not a whole lot more sophisticated than a typical power strip that you can buy at Home Depot. They're generally, the wiring is a little better, but they use
the Furman's wiring is a little better.
Yeah. All of these power conditioners use these devices called varistors, which are basically voltage and temperature sensitive resistors that when the voltage goes up or when the temperature gets hot, they clamp the voltage. And if they clamp enough, they'll burn out. So you can just open one up and look, and you'll see these things that look like capacitors, and they're these little round discs with two wires sticking out of them. And they're generally blue or black. And you can tell if they look beat up, especially if they're blue. You'll see brown. You'll see a brown sort of cast to them. Or if they're really beat up, they'll be blown open.
Or it
They'll be
looks like
physically
the
broken. And they'll
flux
be
is burned
little,
around it.
yeah, the ceramic
ground out.
around them breaks and crumbles. And you can see that in there too. But generally, that's not the case. If you've been just using it in a normal wall outlet and had gear running out of it, chances are that they haven't been breathing hard at all their entire existence and don't need to be replaced. We didn't replace ours, and it's not going to get replaced until it dies, and it's probably not going to die because they just don't get that much use.
Yeah. All right. Good.
They definitely do not. They rarely get used to their maximum limits unless you're touring and you've been on a stage where the voltage is way over the place, or somebody plugs your rack into like a 240 volt outlet or something like that. Then you'll have a problem. But if it's just been used in normal service, nah, it's good.
Next question. Could you describe the design of the GPDI IR powering? Is it single-ended, Class AB, or something else?
It's something else. It is a Class AB is a method, is a condition of biasing power tubes. There's the tubes are biased a certain way. The bias on the power tube is usually set to either conserve voltage or not conserve voltage, to be on all the time or only on 50% of the time. In the GPDI output stage, it's using triodes rather than pentodes, which you don't bias the same way. You bias them through the cathode. So in that regard, they're self-biasing. And so they basically operate like a Class A push-pull amplifier, which is why the power amp stage in the GPDI sounds so good. It's also driving a slightly oversized output transformer for the capacity of the power tube. Normally in a real amplifier, I won't do that. I wouldn't use an overly large output transformer relative to the output tubes that I'm using in the amp, because if it's too big and too efficient and can develop too big of a magnetic field, it's going to sound too hi-fi. So it'll sound too boomy and too crisp, and it won't be pleasant. In the case of the GPDI, it's kind of difficult to make an output transformer below a certain scale. It just starts sounding ratty and will saturate too easily all of the time. And we don't want that. So it's purposely oversized because it's at an optimum size where it still sounds good and is not brittle and can handle the current flowing through the tube that's driving it, which is a triode that's basically biased Class A. But it is a single triode operating as a phase inverter, as a push-pull pair. And there's a unique way of wiring it to an output transformer so that it will behave that way. And we actually patented that activity and that behavior and that circuit design 10 years ago. And it has some other benefits too, because it's a small package with a small output stage in it and a small output transformer. that output transformer can drive a reactive load, a very small scale down reactive load suitable for a 1 watt amplifier. People ask us, can I use the reactive load inside the GPDI for my big amp? No, it's a 1 watt reactive load. It's not a 100 watt reactive load or 200 watt reactive load. But the output transformer drives that reactive load, and that determines how the transformer behaves, and the transformer couples to this little phase inverter that only puts out 1 watt, and those two devices operate in sync with each other, they're sympathetic with each other because they're designed to work together. And there is a little negative feedback loop that controls what the fidelity is going to be like and what the feel and the tonal behavior is going to be, just like what you would experience with a big amp, but it's done with a little amp. And the only thing that a Class A little amp like that doesn't do that a big Class AB tube power amp does is when you're playing louder, the power amp draws more current and the power supply sags. In a little amp that's operating in Class A, the power supply remains stable at one particular voltage because the current draw through the tube doesn't change with signal. In Class A, the tube current is being drawn at the same rate all the time, whether you're playing or not. So in a way, it is, the GPDI is a Class A amp masquerading as a push-pull Class AB amp. And then it's driving a little reactive load. And when you get up to a certain volume, the output tube starts distorting, and then the output transformer consequently starts saturating, and then you get this real amplifier sound. But because the current doesn't shift when you play the note, it could sound a little stiff, and that's why it's got a sag control on it. The sag control is basically a regulator that you unregulate by hitting it with signal. So it's a voltage-triggered anti-regulator that works the opposite the way a regulator is intended to work. And so what it's intended to do is, when on the presence of guitar signal and at the varying strengths of guitar signal that you apply to it, the voltage will shift just the way it does in a Class AB amp when you turn the volume up. So all the elements in there that make it sound and feel and play like a big tube amp are there scaled down in the 1 watt realm, and that's what's something else about it. Great question, thanks.
All right, got about 20 minutes left, Steve.
Right.
Question about my PS100 running a SYN2 into the line in. How do I know if I'm clipping the input, and what would the ideal master volume on the SYN2 be?
The SYN2 into the PS100. Well, very unlikely that the SYN2 is going to clip the input of the PS100. The SYN2 has a finite amount of output voltage, and the PS100 has the capability to absorb the maximum amount of signal that the SYN2 can put out without distorting. So you won't be clipping the input of the PS100. You may be clipping the output stage of the SYN2 by cranking it all the way up. I generally run the master volume of the SYN2 at around between 12 and 2 o'clock, 12 and 1 o'clock. And that's not because I'm worried about distortion. It's just, you don't really need any more. You can set generally you set the module volumes at about the same, somewhere between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, in that range. And the same for the master volume. That's just kind of like the optimum range for everything. So when you set it that way, then you can easily control the overall volume through the whole system from the volume control on the power station. So I tend to set up the SYN2 the way I just described, and then I forget it. I don't mess with the volume of that when I'm playing live or practicing or whatever. If I want to change the volume, I change the volume on the power station, because at that point, all I'm trying to do is get the synth to where it's most controllable by the PS100, and then I run it from the PS100. In some cases, like the modules that have the graphic EQs, for example, if you turn the volume, the module volumes up too high, you'll clip the EQ circuitry, because the EQ circuitry is after the volume controls on the module. And the reason that they're like that is because that's the way it's done in the amplifiers too. So we wanted to make it as authentic to the amplifiers as possible. And so the EQ is after the module volumes, the module channel volumes. Couple of benefits go along with that. Besides the fact that you can control the volume of the module so that it doesn't clip the EQ, the output stage of the EQ is a lower impedance, so it'll be quieter. And then you can turn the master overall global master volume of the SYN2 up a little higher and get a lot of headroom and a lot of fidelity and a lot of variation in the EQ, because you won't be clipping it. And that's really the most important thing. You could set the EQ flat and clip it. And then when you boost the mid-range, for example, it'll start clipping really hard. That means you have to turn the module master volume down a little bit to stop that clipping. So you set the graphic EQ settings so that they're ideal for the application that you're using for. Control that overall output from the master volume of the SYN2, send that to the power station, and then leave the SYN2 alone after that. Because you also have the effects loop in the SYN2. If you're using your effects in the SYN2 effects loop or the SYN1, you're going to get a little bit of different behavior than if you put the effects in the effects loop of the power station. So there's a lot of room to experiment there. But if you just set it within the general parameters that I just described, you don't really have to worry about saturation or distortion or clipping or any of that.
Yeah.
Don't you just love those cat videos where the cat just does this, so you'll give them like a piece of dry food?
When a cat does it, not when you do it.
Yeah, when a cat does it, it's fun. When I do it, it's, would you stop that?
Calling Dr. Love, Lou. That's my favorite Kiss song, actually. Yeah, now you're quoting the lyrics. Hell yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, here we go. Page 232 asks, how do I become your rep in New Zealand?
We need a rep in New Zealand. So how you do that, contact us at sales@fryet.com. And do you have a rep company? Are you a distributor? Do you have a music store? Whatever. If you want to be a dealer in New Zealand, please contact us. We would love to have a dealer in New Zealand. We have a lot of customers calling us from New Zealand, and we ship direct to New Zealand because Australia doesn't want to ship to New Zealand. And if you live in New Zealand, you probably know what that dynamic is all about. And it's not about Australia being mean. It's just by the time it ships from here to Australia, and then from Australia, after they pay duty out to New Zealand, you're just like paying stupid amounts of money for something that you could pay a lot less for if you were buying it direct from the company. And we would love to be able to assist you with that. So please give us a shout. Cool. Thank you.
Kevin Leary chimed in about that David Gilmour Sound City 50 question.
Yeah.
And he said definitely that the Live in Pompeii was what he's going for. So highly recommended.
Joe knows all the inside shit. As big of a Gilmour fan as I am, I'm not that clued in as to what his ridiculous rig is because I've seen him so many times, and the rigs are so many different, and his sound changes zero. I mean, zero. I said this a million times. When he was on Saturday Night Live plugging his solo album in the 80s, he's playing a Steinberger through a Gorilla combo. And what did he sound like? He sounded like Gilmour. So he's the kind of player that for whom you know, trifling over a particular kind of gear isn't probably his main rabbit hole in life. But
we're nerds, so
we're
like to
nerds,
do
right?
it, so all right. Can you please explain, or do you have a diagram of how you would connect the PS2A with the Cyclops, ZMAX, and the PowerLoad IR?
I believe that there is such a diagram already up on the Fryette forum, forum.fryette.com. That's our support forum and our gear nut forum, where all kinds of oddball insider questions are asked and answered by our staff and our friends and our users. You know, it's a community. So that there is a lot of stuff on that forum that you have access to that you can use. And if you go on there, I don't know if Terry is still here, but in the chat, but he is here to assist you with that and can direct you to specific diagrams, etc.
There's a man. Oh, follow up to that question. Same person. Also, is there a way to program the ZMAX to have the front guitar input override the rear passive active guitar input?
No, it's not switchable. You either use the front or the rear. That's an interesting question, though. Right now, the microprocessor that's used in the ZMAX is maxed out, so there aren't any additional gates available, control ports available to put more ancillary switching functions in it. But that could change. It's an interesting idea. Of course, anytime that you put two of something in a product, somebody wants a switch.
Yeah.
Like in the Ultra Lead, when the Pipple Classic, the Ultra Lead, all the amps that we had to have two inputs.
Yeah.
We got so many requests for, I want to be able to switch from the low to the high. It's a resistor. It's one resistor between the upper jack and the lower jack. But somebody wanted a relay to switch between the upper jack and the lower jack. And the problem with that is it's at the very front of all the gain stages. So when you put a relay in there, if you do it with solid state switching devices, it will really alter the tone. If you do it with a relay, and you use a lot of gain, it'll send this loud bang through the whole amp, and you don't want that. So there are times when a combination makes sense and is workable. In the case of the ZMAX, that actually could be accomplished because the ZMAX does have pop mutes in all of its switching functions, so that when it does switch something like that, it clamps the signal for like a millisecond or two, so you don't hear pops and clicks. That could potentially be the case in there, but doesn't do it at the moment, and there isn't a mod for it at the moment that will do that. But that's not to say it couldn't happen down the road.
Okay. Groove. I'm sure I'll bump into it again, but I've seen a couple people talking about looking for the 8x VMAX.
Yeah, well, the more the merrier, they always say, and of course the number of issues that get compounded when you offer something that is more complex and does more things. It's like the number of support questions about how to use it in these unusual ways is squared.
Oh, yeah, it's exponential growth.
Yeah.
Not just a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As an LX2 owner, is there a benefit to obtaining a 252? In your opinion?
Well, we went out of our way to play test the LX2 and the 292 and the 252 and the Classic and the 2150. So on one scale, they all use similar topologies. So naturally, they're going to have similar sonic characteristics. The way the phase inverter is constructed.
You didn't want them to be wildly different.
No, the whole idea was that it was a smaller scale thing of the big thing.
Yeah.
Which generally is what people want. When they
Right.
say they want something small, they want what the big thing does, only small. In some cases, they want everything that the big thing does, only small. like the same volume, the same amount of power, the same power tubes, but in the cigar box. Well, you know, at any rate, the benefit is this. The LX2 is 50 watts per channel right on the nose, exactly 50 watts. We never call a 30 watt amp a 50 watt amp. We never call a 60 watt amp a 100 watt amp. We never do that. There's a lot of manufacturers that do. We're not one of them.
I know it
So,
pisses you off.
It really pisses me off because then
What are we doing?
we get this.
What are we doing?
Well, you know what? The X power amp that I have, when I turn the volume up to here, it really distorts. And with yours, I have to turn it way to a different higher volume. What's the deal there? The other one just has more volume. No, it doesn't. It just, the volume, the input gain stage is configured so that it starts breaking up earlier in its volume travel, which may sound good in the bedroom environment or in a low volume practice environment, but it's no good for playing live, because if you have that amp, you know that once you get past 9 or 10 o'clock on that volume control, it completely runs out of gas because it isn't really doing 50 watts. It's only doing about 30, 35 on a good day. The LX2 puts out 50 watts, both channels operating full out. The 252 is more like 60 to 65. In fact, the 252 the 252 puts out the same power output as the Mesa 290. It does.
Wow.
It's just a fact.
Wow.
So,
I had a 290 once upon a time.
the other thing is that really the benefit of the LX2 is a pretty comparable amount of performance in the LX2 is packed into a smaller case. And the 252 has just a little more because it started out life having a little more. It was a more powerful amp right from the get. And what we did was try to get as much of that performance in a 1U package. And then, of course, we use 6L6s because they're physically, mechanically more rugged. The bottle's glass tends to be a little thicker than EL34 bottle glass, and they're physically shorter, so more ideal for a
What
compact.
we choose to hit each other over the head with, because they're more robust.
Yeah, exactly. Geez, those Sovtech 5881 6L6s,
Yeah.
you can drop those on the cement floor and they won't break.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And that's what we used in the LX2 for that reason. Because as some people have noted, there's very little clearance inside there for the tubes to move around. Of course, the tube sockets are very tight, so the power tubes don't really have an opportunity to move around. You really have to throw an LX2 with some respectable velocity to get anything to break inside. And that just doesn't happen very often. So the other really important critical thing to know about the power ratings is that even the LX2, most people don't use all the power that it has available.
Right.
Why is that? It's really a 100-watt amp. If you use it as a stereo power amp, you're using both channels and you got 50 watts out of each side. So you're getting a sum total of 100 watts. Now, when you're standing right in front of one speaker and then you stand right in front of the other speaker, one speaker, it does sort of sound like a 50-watt amp. When you get it up to maximum power, you start to hear the saturation point. And the same in the other cabinet. But when you get 10 feet away, 5 feet away, 10 feet away from both the speaker cabinets, it's loud because you're getting the benefit of 100 watts of sound pressure level pushing power amplifier. So it's always been our experience that, first of all, our power amps are at the power rating they claim to be. And second of all, it's amount of reserve power that most people never actually use. That's true of the 252, the 292, and especially the 2150. Nobody ever used that thing to its maximum capability. And you could tell when they do, because whenever they would come in from a tour for servicing or something, there would be actual wear and tear on the power tubes. But there's a reason that we have been not replacing power tubes in Dean DeLeo's classic power amps, not replacing the power tubes in Helmut's 2150s, not replacing the power tubes in uh, uh, in ah, oh, I'm such an idiot. Motley,
McMartin's?
Mick Mars. They brought their power amps in. All three of those, 3, 4, and others brought 2150s and classics in all the time after tours to get tubes replaced for the next tour. And it was always like, how come you didn't charge us anything? Because you didn't need any tubes. Well, we want to retube for the next tour. You don't need them. Well, you know, they've been working really great, and we want them to keep working great. You want them to keep working great? Leave them the hell alone, because if they're not breaking, don't replace them. There's no discernible wear on these tubes. I would tell you if there was. If they were rattling, we tap them. If they're making little clicks or pops, or you could hear that there was some microphonic activity inside. If they were doing stuff that indicated, or if they were getting weak, if they did anything that indicated that they needed servicing, we of course would do that. But if you go into the gas station and you say, replace all the tires on my car, and an honest tire guy will look at it and go, you don't need tires. Look, I put a quarter in the treads. They're practically new. Well, I put 50,000 miles on the car. Yes, yeah, but you're not putting hard miles on it. There's plenty of tread. The tires are in great shape. All we need to do is just do a little balancing and then do the alignment, and you're good to go for another 20, 30,000 miles. How can that be? Because you drive like an old lady, all right? And I don't mean this to be facetious or insulting, but all of these guys think that they're pounding the shit out of their Fryette power amps, and they're just not. They're playing loud, sure. And they have a lot of reserve power, absolutely. Are they using everything that the power amp has to put out? Absolutely not. They would be murdering themselves on stage if they did. They would be deaf. Like, yeah, they're deaf. But I mean, they would have been deaf 20 years ago as opposed to 30 years later, you know? So that's really the dynamic at play. The LX2 has probably got more power than you're ever going to use on an average regular basis gigging. So if it's down to, you know, what we find is people usually just buy the different models, not because of the performance or the power output, but because I like the bigger one. I like the cosmetics of it. It's a tonal thing for me. I've played the LX2 and the 252 and the 292, and I prefer whichever one I prefer. And there's always about a preference. It's much more about a sonic preference that's based on all the other related associated gear that you're using with it, not how much power it puts out or what tubes are in it. I mean, that's really, you think that that's the driving thing that's making you question which is ideal for you. But at the end of the day, it's really the construct of your rig that's determining that and whether it's working for you or not. Okay.
All right. We're getting down to, well, I think we're going to go a little bit into overtime.
All right.
We're at 2 hours, but we're chopping through these. Hey, any chances of a CX reissue with adjustable sag control?
We don't know that there is sufficient demand to do the SIG-X. We don't know if the SIG-X can be done at a price point that people really want to pay. As interestingly, it was one of our best selling power amps when big power amps were ruling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was our hands down top selling big amp. And so naturally it appealed to a lot of people. And a lot of people still own them and use them. Do we reissue it? Again, we're really not that company. We're not going to just do something the same old way. It's just not the way we do things. then again, it was so popular, and if the demand, if enough people go, just take my money, give me the damn thing. If we saw a trend, maybe. I mean, I love the amp, and I have. We actually talked about re-releasing it in 2015.
We were talking about it quite a bit a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Like,
we made a updated prototype of it, and we made some improvements to it, and it sounds that prototype sounds fantastic. The original one sounded good. The prototype of the updated original one sounds good, sounds evolved, it sounds a little better, and some of the feature set was tweaked a little bit. But is it going to be ready for prime time again? It's a tough call, but it is sitting there. It's kind of, we have so many tracks, as you know, of things that are in development. So don't think of it as being gone. Just think of it as there's 3 or 4 things up here, and there's 2 or 3 things way back there, and there's always a time and a place for.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that you've ever mentioned that, yeah, I just don't ever want to do that ever again.
I don't think that way.
Yeah.
I look
like,
at the,
oh, if there's a reason to
it's
kind of evolve it, then yeah, I'd like to do that again.
It's a mood thing. It'll be like on a Thursday afternoon, and the sky is cloudy, and it's about to rain, and but the air smells great, and had a really nice day, or lunch was killer, or something like that, and I go look at the SIG-X, and I go, I don't really have the bandwidth to attack that right now, but man, I would just love to try X. So there's always this sort of lingering impetus back there.
Yeah.
And I think that these projects, they're all battling for attention.
Yeah.
And then with all of you people, it's like, call your congressman. You know, I mean, if we get from our people, or any people, that there's a imperative that comes back to light, of course we would pay attention to that.
I tell you what, in the chat tonight, there's an imperative for the 8x8 Z-Max.
Yeah.
People really want it, man.
I need more jacks.
Yeah.
More jacks.
Well, I mean, you do an episode on power amps, you're gonna have the rack coalition coming
Well,
out.
the rack thing it never should have gone away.
Right.
It never really fully went away. We still have bands that have used the rack systems consistently since we first started. So they went out of popular favor, but they never went really away. And we've always made the stuff that goes in racks that is intended to do that
Do you want
really,
another
really
drink
well.
while we bring it home? He does.
And yeah, so you know, people always send us that meme, you know, take my money.
Yeah.
And my response is, you know, make me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next question. What makes a good speaker cab good?
Whatever you think makes it sound good. And that's not me trying to skirt the question, because it's so subjective. What's good depends on your environment, your application. Good wood, a good quality wood, good quality joinery, good speakers, an understanding of what makes a cabinet work. And there's all kinds of things.
With which speakers? Because we all know these speakers in this cab, they sound like pancakes. They really light up in this cab. So it's like, it's just, How much cumin did you put in? Oh yeah, you ruined that recipe. But just a little bit of it in here is really great, right?
Yeah, and
So
this is not ridiculous to say, okay, by the same token, what makes a good guitar? Because it's the same thing. It's the combination of the elements that go into it that make it whatever it is, whether the baffle is a certain kind of wood and a certain thickness, and the back cover is attached a certain way, and the physical size of the cabinet, whether you're talking about a 412 or a 112 or a 212 or a 210 and 112 or 312s or whatever the configuration is, a ported, a teal, a ported cab, a sealed, front mounted, rear mounted. There's just a myriad of things that
oh,
go
man, Roscoe
into
P. Coltrane's back in the chat.
of what?
Roscoe P. Coltrane's back in the chat.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember Roscoe. That's a character from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh
I
okay.
just love the name.
Oh okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun.
So, what makes a good speaker cabinet good is the same thing that makes a cherry pie irresistible. The right combination of elements that work for you. But generally, good materials and good speakers. What's a good speaker? Oh my God, that's we still haven't done this part 2 of the speaker show yet.
No, we did.
We did 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably need to do 3
Yeah.
because there's just no.
All these topics are evergreen. We can
Yeah,
keep doing
yeah.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good. Yay. All right. Do you think a brown box is a worthwhile investment for a 1964 Bandmaster, or is just biased for modern wall voltage?
Okay.
Cool amp.
With all due respect to the lovely people at what's the name of the company that makes the brown box?
I don't know,
Uh,
but the chat's smarter than me, so somebody will.
yeah,
put it in there.
they're lovely people, and it is an interesting product. It does have its place in the marketplace. Thank you, dear. Thank you. Are you all done with yours?
I am. Thank you.
I shouldn't be having a second one, but oh, they're so good. And I'll bet you money that this one tastes different than the last one.
Did you do that with tequila instead of mezcal?
It's different than the mezcal, but I'm not going to say that it's tequila. So what's different?
Tequila.
It's just tequila?
Oh, I put the.
You want to-
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Oh, that's very different. You know, it's funny. That tequila has even more of like a dirt profile than the mezcal did.
Yeah. Yeah. I like tequila with a dirt profile.
I like them both.
I like
You
them
know,
both.
that mezcal was really smoky. So it really was running the show. And then it was great because I love that. But that's a little more balanced. And they're both nice. That's your favorite?
And they were equally good to me.
Yeah.
So there.
Hell yeah.
You don't.
Yes.
Okay. So about line
no.
voltage.
Thank you.
Yes, line voltage characteristics have changed over the decades. But line voltage still has tolerance. And that means it doesn't matter if it's 115 or 117 or 120. There are still tolerances where it goes up and down in various regions, in various neighborhoods, depending on what electrical demand in the area that you're in is. Secondly, a lot of the voltage specification written on the back of the amp is not scientifically exact. It's a convention. We used to say 15 ohms in British amplifiers. You saw early Celestians that were rated 7.5 ohms and 15 ohms.
Wow.
And now they're 8 and 16. Why? Because it's a convention. It's not an absolute spec. The goalpost isn't right here. It's kind of here, right? Same with line voltage. Is it a little higher now than it used to be? Sure. Biasing, does it make a convincing difference only if it works for you. It's not essential that you do that. People do it. People focus on it all the time. I got my constant amp. I plug it into the wall. I turn it on. I haven't touched the bias in probably 10 years. I probably won't touch it for another 10 years. It doesn't get used enough to do that. I would only really touch it if, hey, Wayne, thanks for hanging with us. Love you, brother. If I replace the power tubes in it, I would probably check the bias. I may or may not adjust it. I'm not as exacting about where that bias is. Because again, there's a line voltage tolerance. There is a tube current rating curve, you know, a tolerance that changes as the tube gets warmer or colder. And whatever the line voltage is up and down. So no, I wouldn't suggest that biasing it for modern wall voltage. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say bias the tubes as they are specified to be biased. And for a 64 bandmaster, you know, it's not like this high precision pot that's in there in the first place, right? And the filter capacitor in the bias circuit is also just like the minimum value it needs to be to do the job. It's not an overly large capacitor. It's not a super stable regulated circuit. There's all kinds of slop in there. And see, that's the thing about guitar amplifiers is they were designed and built with the market in mind. And sure, Leo was a nudnik and a tinkerer and an inventor and always messing with stuff. But he wasn't a rocket scientist. And most people that make guitar amplifiers aren't rocket scientists. And so it's about what they can present to the marketplace. And, you know, I mean, the change from tweed to brown to black, they were just trying to keep up with luggage trends. Honestly, that's what that was about. So that was all about marketing. What was going on inside the amp was generally we do this within give or take 5, 10, 20%. So when the amplifier is sort of specified to have approximately 38 milliamps on the power tubes, that means, it even says on the vendor schematics, all voltages are plus or minus 20%. 20% plus or minus 20%. So when they made printed the schematic and they had gone through the whole design process and then went through the whole QC process and they started selling amplifiers a lot en masse and buying consequently tubes en masse, they're like going, oh wow, these tubes are all over the damn place. Well, you know, the adjustment was really there to just sort of get it in the ballpark. It wasn't there to be this exacting number. So 40 milliamps plus and minus 8 milliamps on either side. So 32 to 48. That's the range. That's way more range than what people think is acceptable. You see people all the time going, yeah, I biased it from 38 to 39, and oh my God, did I hear it? Well, you heard half of what you heard different was because you knew you said it differently, and you had an expectation that there was going to be a difference, and then you applied that expectation to what really happened. If you had done that in a blind test, you wouldn't have known, unless the change was radical. And a similar thing applies to the incoming voltage in the amplifier. The voltage is turned to another kind of voltage. It's rectified, it's filtered, the filter caps do their job, and the filter caps have a tolerance as well, usually 50 volts. So if you look at the capacitor rating, it'll say 450 volts, and down in fine print below the rating, it says 50 volt surge. It can take 50 volts more than we're telling you it can under certain circumstances. So yeah, the goalpost, don't get too hung up that the goalpost has to be at exactly at X and Y coordinates on the surface of the planet. It's just not that big of a deal. What you will experience with the brown box is that it's a big wire-wound resistor. Okay? This is the part that doesn't get discussed about those devices. But now you have a transformer in between the AC outlet, which is driven by a transformer out on the telephone pole. And then that voltage is going into your amp, which is fed into another transformer. So now you got 3 transformers in the energy delivery path from the telephone pole to your power tubes. Each of those transformers has losses that are caused by production tolerances, heat, and load. So, all right, when you introduce the brown box in between the wall outlet and your amplifier, you're introducing another transformer. And that means when that warms up, the voltage coming out of it is going to dip a little bit. And however little amount that is, it's still something. And of course, you can compensate it by switching it to whatever voltage that you can set it to compensate for that. But really, you're introducing another device in there that needs its own compensation as well as whatever you're trying to accomplish for the amplifier that it's plugged into. So then when you really put the screws to your amp, let's say you turn it down a little bit, run at a lower voltage, but now you turn the amp up louder because you like the saturation that you're getting. You're actually pulling more current through the brown box and causing a correspondingly larger voltage drop through the brown box. So in effect, it can be considered an effect as well as a tool. Keep that in mind. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying the reality of that device is that it's another device. It's another thing in the signal chain that absorbs energy, turns, it has a level of efficiency that causes some of the energy going through it to be lost as heat. And so there are losses. They're called insertion losses. And those are a thing. You can compensate for them? Sure. You can decide that works for you? Great. Does it hurt your amp? Absolutely not. Do I recommend it to everybody? I honestly don't give it that much thought. Maybe if I had one, I'd go, you know what, that's actually kind of fun. But most of our amplifiers have regulation and stuff in it. So, you know, maybe if it gives you a comfort level for your vintage amp and you feel like you're doing the right thing, okay, that's valid too. Is that an absolute reason to have it? No. But does it make you feel better? Yeah. Okay. Good. Knock yourself out.
All right. We got to go speedier now.
I thought we were done.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Oh, good thing I got another one of these.
So can you talk about the sag on the GPDI IR specifically? So the new dynamics control.
When you crank an amplifier, a typical guitar amplifier, when you get it up to the volume where the power amp starts working, typically you're going to experience a 50-volt drop across the power supply. Under no load conditions, which is you're not playing through the amp, it's just idling. You've got the standby switch on. You could just turn up your guitar volume and play a chord, but you're not doing that right now. It's just idling. The plate voltage is going to be, let's just say, for example, the reference voltage is 50 volts.
Mm-hmm.
When you lay into that thing with the power cord and you have the gain low, but the master volume high so that most of the activity is in the power amp stage, when you push the power amp up to its max, it's going to drop 50 volts on average, a range of 50 volt drop on the power supply. That means the power tube voltage is going to go down. Not only the power tubes, the phase inverter and all the subsequent preamp tubes are all going to drop roughly 50 volts. So the preamp tubes are not going to drop that voltage because they're working harder. They're not working any harder or less hard with the amp cranked or not cranked because, like I said earlier, preamp tubes are triodes, and triodes are operating in Class A mode. And so all the preamp tube stages are drawing the same amount of current, whether or not you're playing. Only the power tubes are changing if the amp is a Class AB amp. Only the power tubes are changing how much demand they're putting on the power supply based on the volume that you're playing. If the power tubes are drawing enough current out of the power supply to make the power supply voltage drop 50 volts, that 50-volt drop is going to get transmitted downstream to the preamp tubes just as a consequence of the power tubes pulling the voltage down, not because the preamp tubes are doing anything different. However, that voltage drop across the preamp tubes will have an effect on how they behave. It's just they're not causing that effect. It's the power tubes doing it. Okay. What's that got to do with the GPDI IR?
And the dynamics control.
As I explained earlier, the GPDI, everything in there is Class A. And that means everything is drawing a constant current regardless of what volume you're playing at. So the power supply sits right at this one particular threshold. How do we get it to act like a real amp? Because this is the goal. We call it a 1-watt desktop tube amp.
Yeah.
We want it to play like a tube amp. The percentage of amplifiers on the marketplace, or that people have had experience with, that are Class AB rather than Class A, is probably about 10 to 1 of Class A amps. 90% of the amps out there are Class AB amps. So everybody's experienced that thing where you lay into the amp and it gives and you love that, and then you lighten up and it blooms back. That's that power amp behavior of the power supply getting its maximum demand and then recovering after the demand ceases. That's that breathing quality that we love, that compression feel, that signal level coming back up after you attack a note, that bloom. All that is power supply sag. So how do we get that to happen in an amp that has a constant current demand on the power supply and doesn't shift? We force it to shift. And we do that by regulating the voltage going to all the tubes and then feeding them a control signal that when you play and how hard you play determines how much that regulator forces the power supply to change its voltage. And so it actually works the same way a Class AB amp does. It just accomplishes the power supply sag in a different way. It's still the 50-volt shift. It works exactly like a real amp does because it is a real amp. So all you're doing with the sag control is determining how much attack there is on the sag, how quickly it sags, and then how quickly it recovers from the sag. So the more you turn the knob, the faster it drops and the more slowly it recovers. The more you turn the knob down, the less drop you get and the quicker it recovers. So you can find the sweet spot in there. You can actually, just using that knob, you can make the sag behavior mimic probably a dozen different amplifiers just by carefully setting that knob to the point where it drops quickly, it recovers quickly, it drops a little slower, it recovers a little slower, it really sags, it really takes a long time to come back. You can feel it under your fingers, you can hear it sonically. Some people really love it. Joe always turns it off. I always put it so that you can just barely see the LED blink. Kristen Cole came over to the studio, like at the last NAMM show. He comes in, he plugs into it. He turns that control all the way up. Just steps on the thing. And I go, it'll feel more dynamic if you just turn it down a little bit so it'll actually respond to your playing. No, this is the shit right here. Bang, 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 bang. And I went, okay, hey, I'm not telling you how to set your amp. I'm just telling you what the lay of the land is. And he was like, nah, this is shit. I'm like, great.
Wow. Wow.
So thanks for that one.
Okay, can you explain what affects the vowel? Can you explain what affects the vowel sound in a tube amp?
Yes. E-I-O-U. It's generally an impression that I have, but it is a noticeable impression. Different phase inverters in amplifiers behave differently. Not so much when you're playing clean, but definitely when you push them to overdrive. So we've got some visual aids, but we're not going to use them. We'll get back to them some other time. But the phase inverter is the part of the tube that not only drives the tubes, but it takes a single signal, splits it into two signals, and one output feeds one pair of power tubes or a single power tube in a 50-watt amp, and the other one feeds the other power tube, and so that those two power tubes act like pistons. One power tube is doing the work, the other one is resting, vice versa. So it's like a V-twin. The signals recombine in the output transformer and sends the sum of those two behaviors out to the speaker. Great. That's when you're playing clean. Now, when you get the tube up to the point where it's starting to clip, all of these legacy tube designs were designed with the idea that we don't want any clipping. So all the gain stages were factored in that the clipping was either not going to occur or only occur under extreme conditions. Well, what was extreme conditions in 1940 and 50 is now normal operation. We just jack it all the way up. Okay, depending on the design of the phase inverter and how much voltage headroom it has, it's going to clip differently at different voltages in different amplifiers. And then different phase inverter topologies, and there are several. Fender uses one type, Marshall uses another, we use another, other companies use other types. There's probably a dozen different kinds of phase inverter, implementations that are out there that have been in use since the 30s. And they all behave a little bit different way. They all have a signature, which is cool. Which is why they're fun to play with. Which is why we like this little amp or this era of this bigger amp. They all have a little sonic signature. One of the most important signatures is that when you clip the phase inverter stage, how it clips determines this thing that we call the vowel sound. And how does that work? So you've got one tube, one half of the phase inverter, and the other half of the phase inverter operating at about the same potential driving signal to the power tubes. But the minute you start overdriving the tube, different topologies distort different ways. If the top half of the wave and the bottom half of the wave start to distort symmetrically, then the harmonics sound smooth and even. The harmonics are the distortion artifacts that are caused by the tube going into distortion. So some of the negative artifacts that are caused by distortion get canceled out when the positive and negative halves of the phase inverter are recombined in the output transformer through the power tubes. So some of that is erased, and a little bit of a signature is left. So generally, amplifiers that have this ah sound, this big open sound, are caused by phase inverters that either don't distort or distort symmetrically. Well, I've heard Marshalls that sound like E, and I've heard other Marshalls that sound like ah. Sure, early Marshalls that had a lot more plate voltage, the phase inverter tended to stay cleaner up to the point where the power tubes started to distort. So once the power tubes are distorting, it doesn't matter what the phase inverter is doing because the power tubes are already maxed. However, the later Marshalls, the plate voltage went down. So the phase inverter then started to distort before the power tubes did. So you actually heard the signature of the phase inverter clipping non-symmetrically. That meant that the negative side or the positive side is breaking up before the other one. Generally, non-symmetrical distorting phase inverters have this E sound. It's a pinch sound because they don't exactly cancel out once they are non-symmetrical. Again, the phase inverter splits the signal into two and then makes a negative copy of the first one. So they need to, if they clip symmetrically or don't clip at all, the sum of the two sine waves that are out of phase are combined in the output transformer. And if that combination is equal, they don't produce any undesirable harmonics. And that tends to sound clearer and more open and more musical. But if the phase inverter is clipping non-symmetrically, meaning that one sine wave is breaking up before the other one, and then they combine, now you start to get a little bit of cancellation, a little bit of a dissonant harmonic structure because
disturbance in the crystal lattice.
Yeah, because the two tubes aren't equally canceling each other out in terms of the undesirable harmonics.
Yeah.
So you hear that undesirable harmonics, which we now think is a cool sound. You hear it in rectifiers, you hear it in later Marshalls, you hear it in the 5150, that which, you know, I mean, it's a cool sound, but it's a decidedly E characteristic. All of our amps have are of the ah variety because the phase inverters are designed to clip symmetrically and stay symmetrical until the power tubes hit distortion. And I like that big open sound. It makes the sustain sound better and makes cleans sound more broad and articulate, and it makes overdrives sound smoother, and you can actually turn the treble up higher on an amp that has symmetrical distortion and not have it sound ratty on the top end. Okay. So hope that helped you. I know it's a deep subject and might be complicated, but thanks for hanging in for that one.
Do you have reps in Huntsville, Alabama?
I don't know about that. Generally, we're dealing with in a lot of areas where there are smaller stores. A lot of those have gone by the wayside, and we've lost touch with some of them. We're not aware of all the independent dealers that may be out there that might be interested in carrying our stuff. So we do a lot of online activity. So if there was a particular dealer in your area that wanted to carry our stuff, they can contact us at sales@fryette.com, and we would be happy to entertain working with them.
Will you make an 8x4 or more of the Z-Max?
We will make whatever people want us to make that we think will do well in the marketplace, and that is definitely a contender that we would consider. Sure.
Okay. Is it true that running too little a signal will blow a power amp as much as running too hot a signal? Someone I know is claiming this, and I have a hard time believing this.
There is some backstory. That's kind of a myth, but there is some backstory, and what it is that generally speaking, an amp that's distorted, an amp that's overdriven, will actually draw less power than an amplifier running clean at full clip. Because once you're in the clipping mode, now you can't turn the amp up anymore. So the power supply current demand goes down. So it's actually easier on the amp to play more distorted than it is to play clean. Does that make it harder on the amp? Not really. It's designed to run at full power in the cleanest mode. The amplifier is designed to run at maximum performance, whatever that maximum performance is. Usually maximum clean performance is the most demand on the power supply. Once you get below that or past that, the current demand goes down a little bit. Running it right below full clipping will generally run the maximum amount of power supply current. And somebody might interpret that as you need to run the signal a little harder because you're not running it hard enough. The amp's working harder. That's just a misambiguation about how the amps really work and somebody's kind of fractured understanding of the concept. So no, you're right to have a hard time believing that. It's not really founded in scientific fact.
Nice.
Cool one, Jesse. I've had that conversation with guys when I was doing repairs. They're like, I heard, yeah.
Okay. How do you source tubes for new products? Does current market availability impact your design?
Absolutely. And they're really getting difficult to deal with suppliers because of all the market chaos that's going on. We've had this discussion before here, but bears having it again. We used to be super, super selective. We can't afford to be super, super selective anymore. There's just not as many suppliers, and there are more negative conditions that prevent us from getting the stuff that we really would prefer to have. So we get everything that we can, we bring it in, we test it, we figure out which tubes work best and which different models of amplifiers we make, and then we stand behind them once we've done our QC process. So it impacts our designs in that what it actually does is it causes the end users to ask more questions like, hey, when you used to use such and such a tube in this, and that's what it says on the manual, well, why are you using such and such now? Because that's what's available now. Doesn't mean it's any better or worse. It just means that if we didn't use something that we may not have used in the past because of some little niggling bitch that somebody had about the way it sounded versus the other thing, these days, that's, in some cases, suppliers that were making tubes that were a little iffy have maybe gotten their processes together now. So that concern has kind of gone away, and we've reevaluated whatever improvements they've made in their manufacturing process since we dealt with them in the past and went, oh, these guys seem to have refined their designs. They're working a lot better than they used to. So we're happy to use those. As long as they pass our QC, we don't really care anymore. As long as it sounds good, passes the QC, and we can stand behind it, we're good with it. And we do find that we're forced to be a little bit more objective and flexible than we used to be. That's just, we can pull our head out of our asses when we want to. We can be persnickety when it's convenient or when it's possible. And when it's not, okay, then we have to be.
You must adapt.
We have to be, more selective, but with a purpose, that we're really just trying to keep a continuum, a consistency, and our protect the status of our reliability, our build quality. That's really what's most important. Thank you.
Any chance of ever doing a deliverance pedal preamp similar to the Friedman IR pedals?
Maybe. Don't have a thought on that right at the moment. We're actually having more fun with the potential that we see with the GPDIR topology. That's a much more interesting thing. But there could be ways of making a more compact, less feature intensive version of that that could do X thing or X other thing.
It's possible. It's possible. Would there ever be a possibility of a PS2 that could run 2 amps for a stereo or a wet dry rig?
It's not outside of the realm of possibility. Don't have much to offer in that direction right at the moment, but it's actually something that we've sort of kicked around for a number of years. And the question is how to execute it, how to make it, how to package it so that it's convenient, functional. It's got to be a tube amp. It's not going to be Class D. It's not going to be solid state. Or if it is, we're going to have to find some genius way to make it not sound the way products that have those amplifiers in them sound right now, because that's just not acceptable in terms of sonics and playability and feel. So, we're always screwing around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Is that a ding?
that's the ding.
Ding-a-ling. Okay. I have a Rivera S120 that is stereo. Which power station do I need, or do I need two?
Oh. So I'm assuming that you mean that you want to attenuate both sides of the stereo power amp. I don't know. I guess if you're using a preamp and you want to push the power amp harder, then yeah, you would need two. But I would say that I would say if you've got that power amp and you've got a head that you're going to attenuate, then, or use the power station to power a preamp for a wet, dry, wet sound, then I would use the a preamp and a power station to run the center cab, and then send a line out from the power station to the two inputs to the stereo effects processor, and then into the two inputs of the Rivera power amp, and run that clean, because it's going to sound a lot better clean than it's going to sound attenuated. That power amp is a beast. It's got big transformers in it. It's got a lot of headroom. It's not the kind of power amp that you want to attenuate. It might sound a little bit it might sound harsh attenuated because it's got such great headroom. I mean, a power amp like that, you want it gives you this big, expansive, clean dynamic, right? That amplifiers that behave that way generally don't sound musical attenuated. But I haven't played an S120 for an awful long time, so I couldn't tell you how that would work out. But like I said, if you're looking to make a stereo rig with an amp that's attenuated, and then use the power amp to power the speakers with a stereo effect after everything, that would be a much more effective choice for you. But if you insist on just running a preamp into the Rivera and then running the Rivera into a power station to push it to its sweet spot, or maybe tweak the character of it by using the presence, depth controls, and the voicing switches, yeah, you're going to need two power stations to do that.
How was Michael Landau introduced to VHT power amps, and what was the reason for him to transition from a 2150 to the Classic?
That's just Michael Landau. He's an inveterate
Tinkerer.
Explorer. He's he's an explorer. He's always experimenting. He's always evaluating. He's always trying stuff. He calls out of the blue, "Hey, I need to try one of these. Here you go." Comes back a week later, "Yeah, pretty cool. Not for what I wanted, but okay." Sometimes it's like, "Okay, this is perfect. Fine, send me the bill." He's mercurial. He doesn't really spend a lot of time talking about what he's trying to accomplish. He's just trying to accomplish stuff. He seems to be, in my experience, he seems to be just not. He'll ask, sort of generalized questions about a thing that he's trying, and will this work, or what will happen if I do this. But usually he's just trying to gather enough basic information to figure out, yeah, I should try this method. And then he'll try it, and then he'll either discard that idea, that experiment was a failure, next, or he'll go, "Okay, this is working for me now." And it'll work for him until it isn't. And then the next gig, you'll see him, and it's like whole new ball game. And he does it. He's done it as long as I've known him, and he still does it. The transition from the 2150 to the Classic could have very well been because he was one of the first adapters of the 2150. And when he adopted that, more people started using it because he was using it, you know. So, and then when the Classic came out, and naturally he's always exploring. So, oh, there's another one. Let me check that out. Oh, yeah, I like that. So, out with the 2150, in with the Classic. And it's an evolution, I think, for him, and it's an ongoing evolution to this day. And every time you hear him play, you can hear the result of that. Wow, he just keeps moving, doesn't he? That's
So
amazing.
it's like, yep, sounds freaking great.
Yeah,
Next rig, yep, sounds freaking great.
yeah. No, I still got more homework to do. I gotta. Oh, really? I thought I had his trip nailed, but now I gotta go back to the drawing board.
He has the best sound of all time,
Yeah.
pretty much.
I like this video I saw relatively recently, like maybe a year ago. He was playing in Nashville at some place, and he was really exploring the light touch thing, playing at a very low volume, just barely touching the string, and you could hear guys in the audience. You could hear them breathing. It just was so quiet that people were I think he figured out how to get people to lean in. And the more you lean in, the quieter he would play, and the more subtle and expressive things became. And he would experiment and sort of like stay in this mode where you could just sort of imagine people leaning so far in their chairs that they fall over because they're not aware they're doing it. That's just the kind of player I'm watching that. And I was doing the same thing. I'm on a computer monitor and my nose is practically touching the monitor. I'm turning the volume up, but it didn't make any difference because turning the volume up on the monitor didn't make it so you could hear what he was doing. It just made it more apparent how evasive what he was doing was, and how hard it was for you to ascertain how is he doing that. It was just he's a magician. I love it.
Yeah. Ding ding. All right.
I'm getting damn sick of that bell. Are we about done? We're kind of way over, aren't we?
We're way over.
I thought we were
Besides
gonna go 2
addressing,
hours.
what's that?
I thought we were only doing 2 hours tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're in Dutch now. It's not my fault.
It's totally your fault. You're supposed to be doing these fast. Besides addressing wall voltages, do you suggest using some
What?
type of box between
Oh,
the
did
house?
you see that?
Dude, I sensed it. Do you suggest using some type of box between the house and the amp to clean or monitor the voltage, clean power? What do you think, man?
I don't think about things I don't think about. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't go there. I can't. And I'll tell you why I can't. Because if I spend my time in that rabbit hole, you'll never
Bad
see me
news.
again. You
Yeah.
will never see me again. And maybe you don't want to. Maybe that's a good thing. You just want to see the company put the stuff out there that you want, and the less you see of me, the better. Fine, great. I don't go there. I'm one of these people that here's how I really feel about it. How do you really feel about it? You can control everything and control nothing. You can control the voltage, the impedance, the volume, the distortion, the string tension, the tuning, the pickup height, how high the strings are off the gauge of this. You can control all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, the guy who picks up the guitar and plays it is playing the way that he plays and expresses himself the way he perceives the world around him. And what voltage is at, and you know, how much that voltage changes when you're playing, and all these kinds of things, to me, they are a huge distraction. And I've built a career on being in this rabbit hole. I'm kind of go down the rabbit hole so that you don't have to. I explore all the nuance of all these insane things to spare you the agony of having to go through it yourself because you're going to spend time and money, and you're going to dig your way out of the rabbit hole, and you're just going to go, I need to take a shower. This was a mess. I do that so you don't have to, because I don't believe you have to. I believe that when I walk into the studio here, or in the sound room at the shop, or at a jam session at a club, or at a recording studio, when somebody asks me to do something, I pick up what I brung and plug it in and play whatever I got. And if it works for them, it does. And if it doesn't work for them, it doesn't. And what I did with this, like a micro adjustment of some environmental variable around me, didn't mean a rat's ass to that experience. It's just things break, voltage surges happen. You can buy equipment, you can get surge protectors, blah 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 blah, and then you can walk in your home office or your work office, and your computer is off. And you go, why can't I log in? Oh, my computer's off. Why is it off? You turn the switch on, doesn't work. The fuse in your your power strip is blown or whatever, and then you reset it and everything's fine again. I use surge protectors to the extent that they just happen to be in the power strips that I'm using, that just like you, I have too many things plugged into. And I use them that way until they stop working, and then I realize, oh, that's right. I just noticed that I'm drawing 18 amps out of a 15 amp power strip. Ooh, silly me. I'm just like the average player. I experiment with stuff until I smell smoke, and then I go, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that again. I can examine it maybe with more accuracy and detail than the average person, but as far as it affects me as a player and the interest in the super micro details of things, I lose interest in that pretty quickly, because I always find much more exciting things to think about and explore than that.
Okay. Hey, if my Princeton is biased for 100 volts wall voltage, can I run it at low volumes at 120 modern wall voltage, or will it explode in giant mushroom cloud?
There will be no mushroom clouds. You may, if it's biased for 100, if it's biased for 100 volts, if you got an attenuator, of course. I mean, look at any of the videos that we've done. Look at any of the videos that Dave Friedman has done. If you bias the amp for a small variation in wall voltage, like 115 to 120, no big deal. But if you biased it based on a variac setting and then plug it into a full range wall outlet setting, of course you need to change the bias. Do you need to change the bias? You should. What's going to happen if you don't? You'll blow a power tube. What's going to happen if you keep blowing power tubes and don't do anything about it? You might blow a power transformer. Is that a mushroom cloud? Nah, but it's not going to be cheap for you to replace it. And if it's original amplifier and you have to buy an aftermarket transformer to replace it, it may not sound the same. So yeah, you probably don't want to do that. But no explosion, no big exciting development. The worst case, you'll just say, holy shit, it sounded great just before the fuse blew.
Yeah, we all know that.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Ding ding. All right. This is quite a thing going on here. Can a power station cause too much stress to an amp? I have a Marshall HW
Hand wired 100 watt reissue.
100 watt. I've been using a power station PS100, and the amp keeps damaging the tubes. Fuse on the amp is okay, but there's a lot of information that they've been giving after that.
Okay, well, there's a whole video on that. So go, instead of me waxing lame about it, and we're way over our time, I would like you to go look at the video. And the video is has Henning Pauly lost his mind? There's a long dissertation about all that. So go watch that. But in general, it, like I always say, if you're going to crank your amp, if you're going to full right hand sweep it and play it for 4 hours, of course you can expect, you know, some potential fallout. But if you maintain your amps and you
So check
replace
this
the
out.
tubes and you pop a tube now and again, you know, that's just kind of normal.
This person is saying that they're running the volume at about 2 o'clock.
That's
they-
full up. That's no different than turning it all the way to 10.
And they've gone through 3 sets of EL34s.
Yeah, what kind of EL34s? If they're JJs, that wouldn't surprise me. If they're Millards, that would surprise me.
No volume at 2 o'clock. The first were 2 sets of T8. Oh, can't read that.
If they're TADs, they will definitely bop.
T80, yeah, the first 2 were those.
Yeah. So this is a 50 watt man. Well, you said it's 100 watt, but you said you pop 2 power tubes.
Yeah.
Damaging the power station tubes? I don't know about that. That's just not a typical situation. There's going to be something to do with cables, the impedance setting, or you're just blasting the fuck out of the thing. And, you know, that's okay to do that. It's not really going to hurt anything except the tubes. But at some point, you got to say to yourself, you know, wow, I love this so much. This is the thing. I mean, we can overuse our gear. The power station is designed with the idea in mind that some people are going to abuse the crap out of it. And abusing it is not really against the law. It's just what you choose to do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I do it. Everybody does it. I revel in doing it. Sometimes I do it purposely. I want to watch something go up in smoke because it will have made my day. That's how I vent sometimes.
Yeah.
But sure, is it a blast to do that? Yeah. Do I need to do it for 4 hours? No. But if you're putting the tubes under that much duress, then make sure that you're using really good tubes. Make sure that they're properly biased. And the tubes that I see kind of typically failing under those conditions are, I hate to say it, JJs, the EL34s are, we just got somebody, I think it was the guitar player in Lana Turner's band, sent us a high watt to repair. He had just got it serviced in England, and they played in Vegas. Outside, the temperature was 120 degrees, and they were playing for 4 hours, and the high watt just quit. Well, it had somebody had recapped it with crappy capacitors, and they couldn't take the temperature, and they all failed. All of them. I'd never seen all the filter caps in one amp fail simultaneously before, but this one did because it was under real duress. But it did have JJ6 EL34s in it. And, you know, he said, oh, I want you to do the bias mod, And I go, no, I don't do the bias mod. You don't need the bias mod. Trust me, it's not the bias mod that's making the tubes fail. It's the tubes that are making the tubes fail. Of course, you're beating the shit out of the amp. You're touring with a 1972 100 watt high watt, and you're beating the holy living shit out of it for hours and hours and hours. That's part of the game. That's what you do. Okay, be prepared. Keep extra tubes around. Of course, if the filter caps fail, that's another thing. Now you got to take it to the shop. Now you're without the amp for a couple of days or a week or whatever your downtime is. And we turned it around relatively quickly, but we recapped it with really good brand capacitors, specifically F&Ts, I believe we put in there. And we made sure that amp was going to stay together under the most punishing conditions, because now I know they're using it under the most punishing conditions. And we put JJ EL34s in it with the stock high watt bias circuit that was in it. If it's good enough for David Reeves, it's fucking good enough for me. And it's always served me well, and it's never failed. And every time I've seen a high watt that had the bias mod in it, it was less than as good as the ones that I have that are stock. And I put them under all kinds of tests. I've observed them on the scope. I've punished the crap out of them. I am convinced that the high watt bias mod thing is a myth and a waste of time and money. So don't even bother. Just use good tubes, maintain the amp. If you're beating the crap out of it, tour with 12 sets of EL34s, and every time they give you even the slightest hint of trouble, just replace them, and you will be fine. Sorry, I got off on a little rant there, but I mean, I get this a lot. We see this a lot. I'm like, do you take your car and pull it up to a brick wall and then stand on the gas for an hour? No, you don't do that. But if you did, what would happen, right? So
Yeah.
if you're going to run it that way, more power to you. I would
Yeah.
love to do that all day long. Just like thrash the shit. I want to smell burning varnish of the wires inside. I
Yeah.
love that smell. When the smoke starts coming out, that's the best smell ever. You know, parts burning up. I used to do that as a kid just for thrills. I would go up in my little lab that I built in my bedroom in my second closet and just set shit on fire. I would plug stuff into the wall outlet and see how long it took for smoke and flame to come out of it. That was like what gave me a reason to live, you know? That's fine. If you're that person, fine. Don't blame it on the gear, blame it on your application and deal with the consequences and just keep extra shit around. You'll be fine. And if you break it, we'll fix it.
Oh man, all right. It's 3 hours. We gotta get the hell out of here.
Bye-bye.
There was another question in here that was asking whether or not we're gonna be doing the show weekly, and we're not doing the show weekly. We just did it.
We're
2
playing a
weeks
little
back to
catch up,
back.
yeah.
Yeah. And then we're gonna be out of town a lot during the next month, so we're not sure where things are gonna fall. And so we thought, you know what? We had this weekend available. Let's just get in and at least take care of the second power amp talk episode.
Do you want us to do it every week? Because if you do, go fish. No, I mean, sometimes I think if we had the momentum and we did it on a weekly basis, we would have less material backed up to have to slog through, you know.
Yeah, there
if
might
we
be
did.
some dumb episodes.
I
don't know. Maybe we'd figure out how to be better.
It may be something that we
More
could
consistent.
consider, you know, especially the way things are going now. I think sometimes people just want to hear good news, fun stuff, interesting conversation, and a diversion away from the madness that's out there. And it just seems like you know, I mean, we've had great attendance at the show this time, just like we did last time. And I think that, I think it's a nice diversion when it's actually a diversion and you're not just hearing somebody yap about all the things that are wrong with the world when there's so many really great things going on.
Well, it is really
in
nice
our
to come
little
into
world.
this nerdy little world of
Yeah.
ours that we all share.
Yeah,
Right?
and you guys are part of that, a
Yeah.
huge part of that, and we
Yeah.
love that you're here and appreciate you hanging with us. So
So the official line is that we do the show bi-weekly. But this next month is going to be really weird. So when we're not doing that, that's why. Because I'm going to be in Europe the next 2 weeks, and then I think we might do a show, and then you're out of town. So we'll get in when we can, and then maybe. Are you out of town in October
I
too?
think but I think that we should maybe figure out a thing where we just have a show rig in a backpack, and then if we're gonna do it weekly, we just do it wherever we happen to be. I just got arrested. I'm in county jail right now, but
Yeah.
hey folks, you got any questions?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with StreamYard, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I pop AirPods in and just stream. I mean, we can do stuff. So anyway, and then as we get further into fall and October, we can revisit that idea of maybe doing it weekly. I mean, we can try it for a while, see if it's too much. Normally when we're not able to do it consistently, it's just because one or both of us are just completely slammed. So we'll see. But I like being here. You like being here.
I like you being here.
Y'all like being here. So it'd be fun to do it more often. So there
Thank
it is.
you, everybody. Love
Yeah.
you. Take care of yourselves, and see you soon.